And with that highlight, we kickstart day 2 of the week and the last day of the first month of the year, in the year 2023. Aren't we blessed wherever we are? Good morning to you. Thank you for making the time to join Benjamin and Bernice on the AM show. Now, coming up, I'll be serving you the news shortly, the latest tidbits from Ghana. But we'll also be joined for the news review by Bobby Banson, a lawyer and one who freely speaks his mind. After that, we get into our big stories for the morning. And today we host a man who's somewhat become a lone ranger seeking to sanitize the operations of the Board of Trustees of the National Cathedral. We'll be speaking to him on this and all about what's happening in the camp of the minority in Parliament following a reshuffle that's ruffled feathers. Member of Parliament for Northton, Samuel Okudzeto is our guest this very morning on the AM show. Stay for that. But we'll also be talking about government's domestic debt exchange program, the DDEP. Per government's timelines, it expires today. Where are we on this trajectory? What is the way forward? What agreements have been reached? We'll be discussing these matters with Dr. Edu Enchi, convener, pensioner, bondholders forum, and former Director General of the Securities and Exchange Commission. We also have Professor Lord Mensah, a lecturer at the University of Ghana Business School. Both of them join us for that all-important conversation. But again, we throw our light on schools, basic schools, our schools of shame. This week, we focus on textbooks. Now, the Ministry of Education in 2019 introduced a new curriculum. Our checks in the Krachin-Chumuru area revealed that schools have received textbooks for just 3 subjects. Jojo Commoner's piece airs later on the show as we expose the rot in the educational system. This morning, we also host Latina Travel and Tours on their latest expedition to Israel and how you can be a part of this awesome experience. As well, we'll give you the chance to share your thoughts with us in the course of the show. Live stream, just shoot us a message with the hashtag AM show. On that note, let's settle for the news up next. Thanks for staying. Let's start with money matters. And more than 290 million cedis has been released to pay suppliers of foodstuffs to the second cycle institutions. According to Chief Executive Officer of the National Food and Buffer Stock Company, Hanan Abdul Wahab, checks have been signed and will be disbursed to suppliers. He says though the funds released do not cover the entire debts to suppliers, it will address the challenges of food shortage in the schools.
Government has taken a very step in addressing this issue, as we owe most of our supply in the last academic year. But the government has made some release last week that it has gone through the various paperwork, and we have actually our bankers have confirmed account as we speak now this morning of the we owe them the last academic year, and this is going a long way to speed up the supplies that are ongoing now. But nevertheless, we have been able to do quite well in most of the food items. You know, we have been engaged to supply 18 non-perishable food items, few ones that are very challenging, but now that funds are available now, and we have payment is done, we would see the swift pickup of those supply of those commodities to the schools.
Good to know that money has been made available. To what extent does it help to make food available, or does it help to clear off your debt?
Currently, as we speak now, what government has released now has actually is quite significant. He has been able to pay more than 50% of what we owe suppliers, and I think that is good for us. And we think that once we are able to make payments of the amount of money we receive from government, is going a long way to bring stability into the supply chain.
So you say more than 50% of the money.
Yes.
How much are we talking about here?
Government has released around 290 million, which is quite significant.
Cities or dollars?
Cities. Yeah.
So 290 million cities
has been released, and is going a long way to support the distribution of the food, because like I said, I've signed almost all the checks, and we are going to also issue the checks to the suppliers from tomorrow. I'm sure even from tomorrow when you come here, you will see most of the suppliers here to pick up their checks.
How much do you owe in total?
Currently, as we prior to what government has released, it's just a little over 400 million.
Okay.
A little over 400 million, and what government has released, we think is very significant, and we appreciate that support from the Ministry of Finance and the Minister of Finance himself, who has taken it upon himself to make sure that he reduces our burden.
Okay.
And plans are also far advanced in validating the rest of the invoices for payment.
Now, the Attorney General's office says no policeman assaulted JoyNews' Lateef Idrisu. This claim comes the same day an attorney representing the Attorney General had told the court the Inspector General of Police had been asked to seek an out-of-court settlement with the journalist. Mr. Idrisu and the Multimedia Group are in court demanding payment of damages for the assault visited on the journalist by policemen. The journalist was in March 2018 beaten up while covering a protest at the police headquarters, and he has since been battling various health complications. Court correspondent Joseph Akakpo has more.
So I feel the pains in my head, because that's where they used the butt of the gun to hit, and my rib, and in my right leg, and my chest.
They hit your chest too?
Yeah, they were hitting me all over, so.
These are the areas you feel pain, but generally, how are you feeling?
My neck as well, yeah, because of the slaps,
What has the doctor been telling you?
He was very worried.
Lateef continues to suffer as a result of the injuries sustained during that brutal assault. The Attorney General's office, however, says no policeman touched him. Mr. Idrisu dismisses the allegations, insisting he was beaten by many policemen.
How many of these police officers?
There were a lot of them. There were lots.
Can you put a number to them?
For those guarded in front of the headquarters, there were more than 20. So he pushed me into them. They didn't know what was going on between the two of us. But I don't know, they all started beating me, slapping me here and there. So I shouted and called him, Joel. Joel, he came and I asked him to start filming. He raised his camera and he started doing something. Some of them also pounced on him and pulled him away. So then they pushed me into the main building, and it got crazy.
The Attorney General's office on Monday told the court it had asked the IGP to pursue settlement talks. Lead counsel for Lateef Idrisu and the Multimedia Group, Samson Ladi-Anyenini, told the court the previous settlement talks mediated by the National Media Commission did not yield much. Lateef then proceeded with his testimony recounting the incident. He's back in the witness box on Tuesday when he'll be cross-examined by the Attorney General's office.
In our next story, a philanthropist has provided a 6-unit classroom block and ancillary facilities for the Lente Wute Community Basic School in the Ketu South municipality of the Volta region. This would augment the infrastructure of the school he established for the community in 2019 to bring education closer to the children in his hometown. There is more in this report.
Children in Lente Wute, a community situated on the Ghana-Togo in the Cathedral South municipality were compelled to travel to neighboring communities to access education. In a bid to end the stress these children go through, a native of the community, Felix Akonta Akakpo, established the Lente Vute Community Basic School in 2019 in this structure belonging to the Pentecost Church. He provided stationery and paid the salaries of the teachers to enable children in his hometown access education without traveling out of the community. 3 years after establishing the school, Mr. Akakpo constructed this 6-unit classroom block with ancillary facilities to accommodate the increasing pupil population.
I'm a proud native of the community who struggled moving for a long distance to school in the 1990s. This singular challenge had a great toll on me and other children at that time. The distance to cover to attend school in other communities created in me a great desire to come back and help the community educate the children. The vision was to provide a community-based, free and compulsory education for all children in the Lente Vute community. Lente Vute Basic School is currently going through the absorption process of the school into Ghana Education Service System. I therefore appeal to Director General of Education, Volta Regional Director of Education, and Cathedral South Municipal Director of Education to consider our effort and how far we have come and accept and absorb the Lente Vute Community Basic School into a government system.
The school's headmaster, Robert Blaushi Ajigbi, lauded contributions of the philanthropist and appealed for furniture and other things to enhance teaching and learning.
The world moves speedily to computer age. Toby Chairman, help us plead with our honorable guests for computers for the school. We are pleading for desks for pupils since our numbers are increasing, but we have less desks.
The paramount chief of Aflau, Togbi Amenyafiti V, appreciated efforts of Mr. Akakpo to harness development to his community, but lamented some unfortunate developments in the area.
It's just very unfortunately that the command over here is under Georgia. But your people at the stations here, they always take money from my people. Women bringing their children to attend school, they will take money from them. What a sympathy. They should at least have sympathy on these fair young boys and girls coming to just to have education.
Fred Kwame Asari, JoyNews, Lente Vute.
The president of the Tabita Pulaku International Ghana, a global organization of the Fulani community, has charged members of the group, particularly the youth, on the need to shun crime as well as work towards promoting peace in their various communities. He made this call during a ceremony held in Techiman to swear in a new set of national executives to steer the affairs of the Fulani community. Anas Abid now reports.
Speaking at a ceremony held in the Techiman municipality to swear in new set of leaders to steer the affairs of the Ghana chapter of Tabita Pulaku International, a global organization of the Fulani community, General Secretary of the group Yakubu Musa Bari admonished Fulanis in Ghana to sensitize its members, particularly the youth, on the need to shun crime as well as promote equality in education.
I promise you all today that I stand firm and ready to continue fighting for our fundamental rights of our people, the Fulanis, and as I have done over the past years. We must be minded also of our actions, especially our youth. We must continue to ensure crime, abetting and abetting crime, harboring criminals and fugitives, respecting the rule of laws, and above all, we must promote equality in education, as well as protecting ourselves, families, and properties. We must remain law-abiding and vigilant. We must be each other's keepers.
President of the group, Alhaji Amadou Jallo, charged the new leaders to execute their mandates with integrity to enable the organization achieve its core mandate of providing support to members of the group.
The newly elected and appointed executive of TPI Ghana are expected to execute their individual and collective assignment with honesty and integrity to achieve the objective of the organization within the 4-year mandate. Under my leadership as TPI Ghana President, I will make sure that all competent individuals and the relevant groups in the Fulani community are recognized and involved in the TPI Ghana affairs.
Hajia Khadija Omar is in charge of Women and Children Affairs. She called on Fulani women to work towards empowering themselves and educating their children to enable them have a brighter future.
It's a very disturbing issue, seeing Fulani children not going to school, taking care of animals at a very tender age. So I always advise the women to try as much as they can to educate their children. They shouldn't rely on the men. They should empower themselves first, because if you have nothing doing, how can you support your child to go to school? So they need to empower themselves. Even if you are in a deep down village, you can have some small ruminants that you can rear and sell and support your children in school.
Chairman of the Elections Committee and National PRO of TPI, Honorable Issa Adams, on his part, emphasized that there is the need for the Fulani community to unite as one people with common destiny and lead in promoting peace in their respective communities.
I humbly appeal to all Fulanis in Ghana to unite as one people with common destiny, to educate their children and give them skills and promote peace within where they live. Continue to do business in towns and cities rather than investing more in the bush. It will get to some time you will not get land to rear your animals. Those who are interested to rear more should get their own piece of land.
Anas Sabit, JoyNews, Techiman.
And on that note, we cap off the news. Up next, the news review. Do stay. Thank you for staying with us. Time now to get into the papers, to get into them incisively and find out what they have to share with us. As always, we have most of the dailies and the other papers that we have to look at this morning. But joining the conversation, we have Bobby Banson. He's a lawyer. He is our guest for the review. Bobby, a very good morning to you. Hello, Bobby Banson.
Hello, good morning, Ben.
How are you doing?
Well, we have life. We can only thank God. How about you?
Well, same here. Yesterday was a bit of a rough day, morning till night, but like you said, we have life, we have strength, we're here to do what we do. Out of curiosity, Bobby, I'd like to find out, which secondary school or college did you attend? I'm not trying to be mischievous. It just hit me that a few things came to mind, and I was wondering, where did Bobby, attend school? Where did you do your?
Well, if you have time, if I asked you to give me a guess, what guess will you make?
I don't know why I'm thinking St. Augustine's College. I don't know. I could be way off the mark.
Once you didn't mention Infante Pim, it's okay. St. Augustine's are our brothers, so it's okay. So I guess I have provided the answer now. St.
Augustine's are your brothers. I'm not so sure because it came because there are so many of you guys. I really don't know.
No, once you didn't mention Infante Pim, it's okay.
So at this school?
Yes, please. Perfect.
Oh, okay. So Kennedy Japong and the cohort. Okay.
And
okay.
I'm one. And I'm one.
And I'm one. Yeah. that's a good addition. And I'm one. Yes, it's true. It is true. Anyway, but what do you guys have against the Bukim boys? I mean, what is it? So you're cool with Adisco, but when it comes to Mfansipim, what is it? Why that rivalry?
No, well, you know, in our local parlance, you see, Penyini Wofin, so you see Hene. And so Mfansipim thinks that they came first, and so they should be the first in everything, and they don't understand why we keep beating them at everything. You know, they're only known. So they always complain, well, we've been here first, we came first, and yet Adishadel is always the first, or with the first, and they don't understand. If your motto is, you know, you have to look ahead, and looking ahead does not make you the head, then there's a problem.
So I've been hearing that, just to cap off this conversation, either the first or with the first. Is that Adisco? Is that, I mean...
That is, yes, but we say it in Latin. Verb primus, welcome primus.
Okay. I love the way all our schools, you know, had the Latin in there. My school, Bishop Herman, Sicut Miles Christi as Soldiers of Christ. It gives a certain feel to it. I think Presec, in your light we shall see light or something. I don't remember the Latin, but anyway. let's get into the papers this morning. It's good to know you very well. The Daily Graphic newspaper is what we'll start with, Bobby. It says ECG owes Bui Power over $600 million. PAC urges quick recovery. I'm just looking at this and just say, hey, how do we even get anything right with such situations? You go to Gridco, Wahala Day. GMPC, Wahala Day. If you want to go to the other end of the energy chain, Netco, Wahala, just say, hey. And the independent power producers, the IPPs, will also give you their mix and how much. Let me just hold my horses. When we get the details of the story, we'll take it from there. Bank of Ghana policy rate now 28%. It's been hiked again. And you know that is also going to put quite a squeeze on a number of things, including lending at the banks. Over 30,000 unclaimed passports gathered dust. Are you one of those? Maybe you put in a request for a passport. You've not picked it up. Please do. And then modernized telecom regulations. MTN Group CEO says so. But the main story, health alert, intensify monitoring of food vendors. And I'm sure that also has something to do with the recent 5 people who were affected, so to speak. Let me leave it at that, from eating wache. And I think the husband of the woman involved, the one who cooks the wache, saying that it's going to take quite a while to recover. But the nation must intensify efforts to improve on food safety because of the activities of food vendors who are steadily springing up in the country without proper surveillance of their activities. The Food and Drugs Authority must therefore scale up its surveillance efforts and take steps to clear food vendors without permits off the streets, as their operations are a source of danger to people's health and lives. A nutritionist at the Department of Nutrition and Food Science of the University of Ghana, Professor Matilda Steiner-Siedu, who has made the call, emphasized the need for authorities to take surveillance seriously, especially at a time considered to be difficult due to high prices of food and vendors wanting to find a means of making profit from their operations at the least cost. Bobby, I'm sure we all, patronize those street vendors. Even if you're the type that always wants to eat at home, at some point, you'll purchase food from some street side location. We like our Zango rice and all of that. But sometimes they get it wrong. Last year, I had some terrible food poisoning on the back of something. And this wasn't even a Kwancheng, place. So a proper outfit, and it was terrible. Rice and soup. Nearly lost my life. My life flashed before my eyes. What do you think? Are we not serious enough? Is it a lack of the human resource? Is it just that, look, they'll spring up anyway? Because these food vendors are supposed to have permits before they sell. Most of them don't.
Ben, well, to some extent, maybe we can say the FDA, but when I hear these things, I look more at the municipal or the district assemblies, because they are the ones that have the immediate control over whatever happens either in the municipality or the district assemblies. And they are the ones who every morning send their revenue collectors to go to these food vendors to collect their daily tolls, if there's anything, or taxes for the municipal and revenue assemblies. Every municipal or district assembly is supposed to have a food inspectorate division or unit attached to it, that they are supposed to go around to check if the food are being sold, the food vendors are selling their food or operating within sanitation regulations or whatever that the standards are. Because I would not want to think that the FDA would have to leave, because the FDA is a centralized institution and they have units attached to these municipal or district assemblies. So I think that they are the ones that we should hold up responsible for some of these lapses, particularly when they go there to collect tolls or the daily taxes. And then when there is a problem for enforcing these sanitation regulations, then they tell you, oh, it's not us. You'd have to go to FDA or you'd have to go to this. I think it is wrong. And secondly, we as citizens should also be able to ask some of these questions. So, you know how we joke and say, oh, the food is nicer if it's sold by a gutter. Those kind of statements, I mean, we should stop saying them or joking with them, because then it gets into a situation where we don't care anymore. Sometimes,
you know, it's interesting because the last time I heard someone say that, it was actually a lawyer. a very nice lady. But that was what she said. So, you know, when it's by the roadside, and that's the best one.
It gives it a different taste. But then, you know, I lost a mate of mine from Adisadel, interestingly, because of food poisoning, and it was sad. Yeah, we had just finished university, went to eat wache, and he died. It was just like that. He just died. A very brilliant dude. And so when I hear these stories, it's gotten close to me enough for me to know that it's a serious matter. And the question is, what are we doing about it? It's not FDA that lets you, when you are going to buy the food and you see that the environment is not what it's supposed to be, that is, as lawyers will say, prima facie for you to walk away. I understand that sometimes the food is cooked from places that you do not have control over. So that could be the problem where you as a buyer could not have control over. Then we'll have to shift to the municipal assemblies, because I do not think that we should put this at the doorstep of the FDA. I think that the municipal and district assemblies should have their food inspectorate divisions up and running to go and even go to where these vendors prepare the food before they come. I was saying that when I was in law school, where we used to walk from the Rollins Park, the Cow Lane to campus very early in the mornings, and you see where sometimes they are preparing these foods to bring them to Rollins Park or to other food areas to do, and you ask yourself, geez, is this where, you know, these foods are being prepared?
Yeah.
Because the person buying it at the end will not know where the food was prepared from.
Yeah.
But the municipal assemblies and the district assemblies, if they task their food inspector divisions very well, you'd see that they'll be able to go around and then inspect these things. Well, it will come back, they will tell you, we don't have the resources, the budget, we don't have the personnel. But if we keep looking at what we do not have to prevent us from doing what the law requires us to do, we will suffer some of these consequences. It's not the first. Last year, there was a big restaurant that suffered such, issue.
Yeah.
It was closed down for some time.
And it's good you're not mentioning the name. I know why you're doing that. But time and again, we hear these. And you know, especially for those who sell by the roadside, you often hear that they go, for example, to market, and some of the onions, and especially the tomatoes, they go for the rotten ones. And there are vendors who actually set aside the rotting ones. You know, sometimes you see the tomatoes with those whitish bits on them. They are dangerous, we've been told. But that is what some of them specifically go and purchase and use for stew. So when you're doing this, some of them, sometimes I think it's a lack of education. They are thinking because we're going to cook it, it will kill everything. But it doesn't necessarily work that way. And sometimes it can be fatal, like we saw recently. So I don't know. I think a lot more systemic guards, like you're mentioning, could help alleviate the problem, because too many people are getting away with murder. They are trying, and especially on the back of the economic situation, like the story says, they're trying to cut corners to make a profit. So they'll do everything to get the cheapest and sell it at the highest price. And the one who will consume it, that's where the problem is.
And these things, like you said, it's not as if those who go to buy the food by the roadside are people who are in the lower income level of the economy. In the corporate circles, afternoon watches, even on Sundays, Saturdays, it's a thing for Ghanaians. And so you could have a very, for lack of a better word, an upper class person who would suffer this food poisoning, and a lower class person suffering the food poisoning. So yes, I agree that the vendors, they should look at their own conscience and see, is this the kind of food that they would have sold to their own children? And then it will start from the people themselves do not have that conscience or that consciousness to stop doing what they are doing. No matter the level of enforcement that you put in, they will find ways and means of beating the system. One will ask, why should the tomato that is going bad even be on the market in the first place? When you have these municipal assembly persons always working through the market, collecting tolls or taxes from these food sellers, and they see that the food that they are having is not what is supposed to be there. If you travel outside the jurisdiction, these supermarkets, they have a day or two policy that when you put the food on your shelf, the fresh vegetables or whatever, and you are not able to sell it that day, the next day, they are supposed to go somewhere else. Not on the shelf anymore. And you ask yourself, when can we get there? Because I'm happy we have a consumer protection advocacy group. I think the Environment Consumer Protection Agency, right? Something like that. It's an advocacy group. Maybe this is something that they can also look at. If they are resourced well by civil society, by private persons, maybe they can take it upon themselves to do the education and then, provoke the structures that the law has set up to actually do the enforcement. And if we say that, okay, this month or this year, we will do food awareness program, the media will get involved, the Consumer Protection Agency will get involved, the Food and Drugs Authority, the municipal and district assemblies, go from one vendor to another with the information van. They have something, the information services department or something. They would all get involved. I think that it would be a good start.
A former law school colleague of mine just sent in a message, and it's a funny one. I'll just read it. He says, Ben, how do you have Bobby on the show and you guys are talking about food and none of you mentioned Mensima versus the Attorney General? This is a colleague just being mischievous. But anyway, we'll proceed from there. So,
well, the simple answer is that I'm sure 90% of your viewers will not understand Mensima versus Attorney General.
Interesting point. Well, let's continue the conversation. So, on page 16, ECG owes Bui Power over $600 million. Let's quickly get to that page. Here we are. So it says, the Bui Power Authority has been advised to expedite its rate of recovering $640,373,274.36 debt, or that debt owed by the Electricity Company of Ghana. This is because the money owed the power generator has been indicated to be adversely affecting its ability to operate effectively and deliver on its mandate. The chairman of the Public Accounts Committee of Parliament, Dr. James Kluchaveji, gave the advice when the Ministry of Energy and its agencies took their turn before the committee to answer queries raised by the Auditor General for the year 2022. According to the report, the ECG owed the authority $386 million as at the end of December 31, 2019, which increased to the $614 million we are speaking of at the end of 2022. Let's also take a look at the Bank of Ghana policy rate. And the Monetary Policy Committee of the Bank of Ghana has increased the rate at which it lends to other banks from 27% to 28%, the highest in more than 20 years, more than 2 decades. This means that when banks borrow from the central bank at a higher cost, they will equally increase the interest rates on loans to individuals and corporate bodies So if Bobby Banson goes for a loan now, it will hit you. If Benjamin Akakpo goes, it will hit you. So it is expected to ultimately affect the ability to purchase goods and services and hence douse inflationary pressures. But while it may end up, and there's no hard and fast rule, it may end up aiding in the fight against inflation. We could also see it maybe giving some gains to our currency, the Ghana cedi. Quick thoughts on these two stories?
I think that we are in a stage where the economy needs some drastic measures. And if this is how the managers of the economy think that we would promote or we would stabilize the situation and make it better, we would all have to bite the bullet and then move in with it.
We've been increasing the policy rate for a while. I mean, the American Fed had to hike it for a number of times. I think it's tapered off. We're still increasing ours, and the question is when we will put an end to this, because it has consequences for the business community. If you can't borrow from the banks, there are so many things you cannot do, and that could also constrict our economy in terms of private enterprise especially, and all of that. So there are different dynamics. Like it points to highest we've seen in 2 decades. So that's not exactly where we would want to be. But on the other end, like you're saying, we must also find ways of taming inflation and controlling. You know, recently the dollar hit about 13.10 to the cedi. As of yesterday, it had fallen to about 12.4 thereabouts. So yes, measures here and there, but ultimately, let's see how it works out for our economy. The final one there in the Daily Graphic, over 30,000 unclaimed passports gathered dust. That story on page 20. If you've not gone for yours, pick it up. 5 arrested over tax evasion. That story is on the back page of the Daily Graphic. And monkeypox claims 4 lives, 116 local cases recorded. And Ghana has recorded 4 deaths with 116 confirmed cases of the monkeypox disease in 14 of the 16 regions as of the close of 2022. It also means that it's something we ought to be looking at carefully. The virus spreads through respiratory droplets and close contact with the rashes of an infected person. So if you see someone, I mean, I'm not trying to say you should go discriminating, but if you see someone who is showing some of these symptoms, you might want to be a little careful. Just like with COVID, someone will get it and stay alive. Another person might get it and not make it. So just be cautious. The Ghanaian Times newspaper, that story is the big one there. Over 30,000 passports remain uncollected. That's according to the Foreign Ministry. Show love to persons with leprosy. That's according to the Veep. Reminds me of when I led a team to the Wager Leprosarium, and he is here pictured lovingly holding one of them and interacting with her. Stop charging in dollars, pack order state agencies. Okay. I'm
very
sorry.
interesting, the irony with that.
That's exactly why I'm laughing.
Yes.
Your thoughts on that, even before we get into the story.
You go to a state agency to transact business and they give you the quotation in dollars and they add, oh, you pay in CD equivalent, and you ask them, oh, but why is it like that? You know, because the Bank of Ghana is telling everybody not to stop pricing in dollars. Like, well, we have to do it. We have to generate funds. It's really a big problem. When you are saying that on one hand, the citizens should not do something, but state agencies completely ignore it. Sometimes they tell you that, well, we deal with foreigners who are trying to do business in Ghana. So, for example, the GIPC prices, the minimum capital requirement are still pegged in dollars. They will tell you, well, we are targeting foreigners who want to do business in Ghana, bring stability and whatever. If you go to immigration service, they still price their services mostly in dollars, but you're allowed to pay in cedis. You know, it's just the irony where the hotels will tell you, well, we're also dealing with foreign clients mostly, so why are we not allowed to price in dollars and then receive the currency in cedis? So I agree completely with the call of the PAC boss.
Thank you very much. There's also, so maybe we should just take a swipe at that story very quickly. Over 30,000 passports are yet to be collected by their owners despite text messages sent to them to do so at the various centers across the country, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration has said. The ministry is therefore appealing to the general public, particularly passport applicants, about the urgent need for them to collect their printed passports from the various passport application centers. A statement released by the ministry in Accra yesterday said. I'm sure it also has to do with space constraints. So you are not picking up yours and they have to let go of them. There's also changes in minority leadership, party caucus in Crunch meeting today. I've read actually Muntaka Mubarak say that if the chairman of the party, Johnson Esidu Nketia, says the FEC and the NEC were involved, he should show any form of interactions that had been had. But of course, there's been justification from the leadership of the party that this is the way to go. It's in the best interest of the NDC. And in London recently, we also heard the chairman of the party make mention of the fact that part of what happened could actually be attributed to the fact that some of the leadership of the party were getting into too many brushes with the speaker. They were supposed to cooperate with him, and they were rather doing something else. And any quick reflections on those?
Well, I heard...
Hello, Bobby?
So I heard that justification by the party chairman where he said, well, if you have an NDC person as the Speaker of Parliament, you should expect some advantages. And that, unfortunately, they are not seeing those advantages because the minority leadership is not cooperating, but it is the majority leadership that is cooperating. I really didn't understand what he meant by, those kind of advantage, because the Speaker of Parliament is the Speaker of Parliament. He's not elected to be on one side. And if the party intentionally feels entitled to favorable treatment by the Speaker of Parliament, that is a cause for concern. Because from what he said, that is how I got that he feel entitled that, well, it is our man that is there. So we should get some level of favoritism, or as it were.
Well, while I will not hold brief for him, I've listened to conversations on that very subject, and the understanding, what he says basically is, we did not go through all we did. It's the first time that in the Fourth Republic, and maybe across our checkered political history, we have a minority person becoming Speaker of Parliament. But I think he made the point to mean that you cannot have the situation, I recall, where you would have the majority cooperating with the Speaker, and for you, rather in the minority, from whose stock he came, to be to have that sort of friction with the Speaker in the House. And I think you recall that interaction with Muntaka Mubarak, the Member of Parliament for Asawase, and how it got pretty hot in Parliament. The Speaker citing him for some disrespect, So I think those are the ones he's pointing to, not necessarily that maybe they expect the Speaker to be on their side. I think that is the point.
Well, it's fair to what is actually happening in respect of their party. Like I always say that it's in the interest of our democracy that we have these top two political parties actually up their game, united and with a singular vision, so that they will provide they will provide alternate policies to the Ghanaian electorates. And so if there are those internal wranglings, it means that they may not go into the elections with a united front where they would focus on providing alternate policies, but rather solving the disunity apparently within their party. I heard Mr. Muntaka say that if they do not solve these problems, it may affect their electoral chances. So I think that it is in their own interest, because whether we like it or not, I think the NDC feels that they've not stood a better chance of winning elections than this year because of the economic situations and other things that the MPP have not done really well. And so if they allow these internal wranglings to divert their focus and attention from preparing for the elections, I think that it will not be in the interest of Ghanaians, where we would then be deprived of a formidable force going into the election, providing us with alternate policies. I must also add that it seems to me, and I hope that the elders will come into the elders of the NDC will come in to solve it, that the two sections, or should I say sections, or the two the two sides within the NDC, because we've had some members of parliament petitioning the highest decision-making body of the NDC, saying that they do not agree because the caucus was not consulted.
Right.
We have some members of parliament who also, and the national executives, also saying what? We didn't have to consult the caucus because you were the ones we were coming to remove you. And I believe that...
In fact, the chairman says they did consult all the key personalities, or most of them within the party. It's just that they may not be coming out to say, I consulted Asemesi, this person, or the other person. But that they took varied opinions, some for, some against. They sat, thought through them, and decided this was the way to go.
But I thought I heard him say that they didn't consult the leadership of the people that they were seeking to remove. Because they thought that,
it's the people themselves. Well, for those, yes. I hear letters were sent to them.
Yes, post the event. So I think that if they all compromise, at the end of the day, they are all in the interest of the NDC. And so with all the experience that they have under their belts, Mr. Haruna Idris, being one of the longest serving members of parliament, I think he's done 20 years or thereabout. Same with Mr. Muntaka. And the level of experience that Chairman Mosquito has under his belt, I think that they should be able to reach a compromise so that Ghanaians would have that formidable force of the NDC going into the 2024 elections. That will provide us alternate policies to make up our minds whether we should bring them to power or help the MPP break the 8.
Bobby, we have to go in a bit. I'll read out some major headlines, topical ones from different papers. You choose which of them to address. Chiabosum dumps wife, and he says that's in the Daily Guide newspaper. It has come to an end with his wife, and he's moving on. 8 grabbed over school placement expose. And I'm sure you followed that. JoyNews, the Fourth Estate,
I've heard that,
and the rot that it has uncovered. People taking up to about 11,000 Ghana cedis. Even caterers, people in the canteen, being able to, get things together, give money here, give money there, and pocket their share. There's also public debt hits 575 billion Ghana cedis. Just to add this one, the Finder newspaper on page 2. Economic challenges hit banks severely, and current macroeconomic challenges are negatively impacting the banking and financial sectors, resulting in the sector's unimpressive performance in December 2022 compared with December 2021, as some key financial soundness indicators recorded significant declines. It makes mention of 32.2% increment in operating expenses, 184% increment in provisions. It goes on and on. You can check out details of that on page 2 of the paper. There's also Alan is a man of integrity, Reverend Ampia Kofi. That's the New Crusading Guide. Which ones would you reflect on as we cap it off?
Well, the school placement situation, the whole idea of the school placement was to prevent the perceived nepotism, corruption, bribery that was associated with the heads of schools selecting the persons that they want to be within their schools. And so if the problem is still not gone, then we would have to check the system and make sure that it's actually free and very fair. And then persons that deserve to be in the schools. The whole idea was to make sure that, you do not have only certain class of persons attending the A-list schools as we have it. And so I hope that they check it. With the statement on the integrity of Mr. Alankash, it's very interesting, the MPP flag bearership race. He seems to have taken the lead in terms of starting it and making all the waves, as it were. I hope that it follows through. What is interesting for me is that as we go in, year out, or with every election, you see the religious aspects playing more prominent role in the campaign activities of the various aspirants. And so when you see, for example, Mr. Kennedy Japan, I saw some of his billboards with the Matthew quotation on it. Alan Chamantin also first showing that, he had the spiritual backing of the spiritual leaders, or some of the spiritual leaders on the land, inviting them I think there was a meeting at Kempinski or Moving Pick or something, and then later hosting a Thanksgiving event. So you see more and more the politicians or the aspirants are seeing that, okay, we need to involve the religious leaders. My only hope is that it is actually not for political expediency sake,
right,
and that so you don't have somebody who in the past would say things that are unprintable against religious leaders and people that he thinks spend more time in church, as it were, and all of a sudden, because he wants to be president or he wants to be vice president or he wants to hold political office.
But that's exactly what we see them do. They capitalize on everything. They'll come to you and eat with you and all of that. But anyway, we'll have to cap it off here. Unfortunately, our time has run out. But Bobby,
thank you,
Mr. Adisco. Have a good day. We're so grateful that you took the time to join us this morning.
Thank you. Okay then. Bye.
Bobby Banton joined us for the news review. He is a lawyer. Before we go into sports, Ado Okuluche, today is your birthday, and you're always following on social media, always watching this show. Thank you so much for doing us the honors, and have a blessed birthday. On that note, let's do some sports.
Good morning. Let's do sports here on the AM show with me, Muftau Nabila Abdullahi. Former Black Stars assistant coach Didi Dramani says that Ghanaians were over-expectant of the Black Galaxies' ability to win the Chan tournament, currently ongoing in Algeria. Ghana was knocked out of the competition in the quarter-final after losing 2-0 to Niger. The defeat of the Black Galaxies has led to many questions surrounding the technical ability of Anawalker and his men, as well as the kind of leadership offered to the football institution by Kurt Okreku and his team. Didi Dramani believes that if Ghanaians were not so expectant, that they wouldn't be disappointed as they are.
It all boils down to the expectations that we put around these phases. And the Chan is basically organized just to improve local content. And the local content means that it gives you the opportunity to something that we should be very, very deliberate in the way we put up things. And I believe that this administration has the thinking of, doing things progressive, because we are in a strong partnership with the Football Association in terms of coach education, in terms of training coaches who understudy the game, in terms of bringing them here to understudy, and then after some time we send them to our sister club in Nordjylland to understudy. That is the face of our football is all about coach education. We need to educate coaches more. Mubarak, the key aspect is that if you don't educate someone, what information is he going to give to the one that he wants to educate? So we need to continuously educate.
So what I'm saying, Ghanaians were overly expectant of the team.
That's what I said. Okay. I said our expectation need to be very minimal, because you need to put in the structure, or else you abuse the system. If you just go and then you really has not invested too much in terms of education, in terms of structure-wise, and then you just go and get results in doing things rightly. So this is the way. And so if I did things wrongly in the past and I still gain success, I shouldn't think that is the right way to do.
Well, the immediate success is what every leader within the Ghana Football Association has always been seeking for. And this has led to what the president of the Sports Writers Association of Ghana, Commander Yeboah, has described as unnecessary expenditure of Ghana's World Cup money. Many would recall that Ghana has qualified to the World Cup 4 times, but there's not a single legacy project, despite the millions of dollars the country has received from participating in the FIFA World Cup. Kobona Yeboah wants the government and the Ghana Football Association to stop giving management members $100,000 for roles they do not play.
It's been 41 long years since Ghana won the AFCON. It's been 40 years since Kumasi Asante Kotoko ruled Africa, and 23 years since glorious Atabuk dominated the continent. The statistics sadly indicate the rest of Africa have overtaken us as we now play catch-up. We need to work smart and invest meaningfully in our sport to halt the rot. Isn't it sad that in our last 4 World Cup appearances, we cannot boast of any major legacy project from the FIFA money, much of which was shared among players and officials? We certainly have to take a second look at the practice, for instance, of paying as much as $100,000 to some management members as appearance fees. His Royal Majesty, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, this year Ghana is scheduled to host the Africa Games. 7 months to the scheduled start, our infrastructure is far from ready. More worryingly, our federations are not doing much in terms of preparation, as most of them lack the needed funding. In fact, we're running out of time, and unless the African Union acquiesces to our request for the postponement of Africa's premier multi-sport competition, we may confront a national disgrace. The time for the government to act.
Well, for the Africa Games, Joy Sports can report with all certainty that that competition has been postponed to April 2024. So you shouldn't be worried that Ghana would not be hosting the competition because of the engagements the government, the Ministry of Youth and Sports, and the local organizing committee have had with ANOCA, as well as the United OAU, that's the Organization of Africa Union. What we are made to understand is that there were some issues regarding the marketing rights of the competition, and all these things have also affected the country's readiness to host the games. Now let's hear from the Minister of Youth and Sports, Mustafa Yusuf, who says that government is committed to the development of sports in Ghana.
Sports bring, when well structured, it also enhances the social cohesion and generally our health being, improvement in education and infrastructure development of our country. Sports' ability to positively impact society is acknowledged, and the potential is recognized in the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development Goal. This which recognizes sports as a crucial for attaining the SDGs. Ladies and gentlemen, the Akakpo administration is committed to sports development agenda. Over the years, the government has fiercely concentrated on sports infrastructure development to enable the sector in reaching its economic potential. African Games in Baltimore and also Legon. The unprecedented construction of astroturfs across the country and the rehabilitation of sports stadia and the construction of 10 multipurpose youth resource centers, which very soon 5 of them will be commissioned for the use of our sportsmen and women. I would like to urge all federations to hold local contests in order to pick competitive athletes for our country as we prepare to host and organize the 13th African Games to continue to compete in global contests and always provide our best at all times. That can only be achieved by a competitive involvement of all federations at the grassroots.
World Football Governing Body, FIFA, has ordered Ghana Premier League club Midiama FC to pay former player Ahmed Toure over 100,000 Ghana cedis for breach of contract. Part of that money per a FIFA document, which is available to Joy Sports, dated January 30, 2023, and passed on January 25, 2023, by sole judge Dana Al-Naomi of Qatar, said it is an astounding remuneration which totaled 60,900 Ghana cedis, whilst the remainder is 40,600 Ghana cedis. It is a compensation for a breach of contract. Midiama must complete full payment within 45 days or face sanctions from registering players nationally and internationally. The Shan tournament, because he has gotten a deal to Sudan. Abagna Sandan joined Sudanese side Al Hilal from Premier League side Real Tamale United for a transfer reported fee of $200,000. Abagna signed a 4-year deal with the club, which will see him stay with Al Hilal until 2023. The midfielder makes the move to Sudan after a brilliant individual campaign at the 2022 African Nations Championship, where he won the Man of the Match award in Ghana's second group game against Sudan. Abagna featured in all Ghana's games at the competition, where the country exited at the quarter-final stage to Niger after losing 2-0. And this is how we wrap up AM Sports here with me, Muftau Nabila Abdullah. We expect the Ghana Football Association to name a Black Stars coach by the end of this week or possibly next week. We appreciate your company. The show continues right after this.
A warm welcome back to you. You're still live on the AM show with Benjamin and Bernice. We get into our big stories now, and we host a man who's become, in some way, a lone ranger seeking to sanitize the operations of the Board of Trustees of the National Cathedral. Initially, we heard him following the trajectory of the planes, the president's flight channels and all of that. Reminds me of that gentleman who has been following Elon Musk. But we've been speaking to this personality this morning on what's been happening in the camp of the minority in Parliament. I'm talking about the NDC, following that reshuffle that has ruffled some feathers. I'm talking about none other than Member of Parliament for North Tongue, Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa. He is our guest this morning. Good morning.
Hi, good morning, Benjamin. Good to see you.
Good to have you on the show. It's been a while since we had a tete-a-tete like this.
That's true. But I've been following you. You're doing a great job, and keep it up.
Thank you.
It's,
For God and
it's
country.
in our collective interest, yeah.
I wanted to start with matters related to the NDC, but I think it's only apt that we look at your constituency, North Tongue.
Yes.
I know you've had a number of initiatives there at a point delivering what? Footwear for children, schools. What's the latest in North Tongue? How much is Okudzeto Ablakwa bettering the lives of the constituents? Tell us what the state of North Tongue is.
Well, so let me first of all extend warm regards to all viewers and particularly to the chiefs and people of North Tongue. As you do know, I like to be a member of parliament who delivers on my mandate, who will always go all out to better the lot of my people. And so we are rolling out and continue to roll out a number of initiatives. The latest one we did this last week was a new initiative to fumigate and disinfect all our hospitals and our schools. So I'm partnering with a private entity, and we had a good time last week. The Bator Catholic Hospital, the Three Kings Special School, and it's going to be very regular. Before that, I received a team of doctors based in the United States of America. They called themselves the Ghana Association of Medical Aid. So it's an association led by a Ghanaian, but he's able to reach out to colleagues in the health sector in the US. And every year they do an outreach in Ghana. I was very pleased to host them for 5 days in my constituency. We did all kinds of outreaches that relate to from those who needed surgeries, who had to be referred, to all those who had, conditions that even you can say that were unknown hitherto. So they didn't know that they really needed.
When these medical personnel came, then they found out they.
Then they found out, and so it's been really impactful. There were about 40 of them, 40 of these volunteers, and we were able to make an impact in all the 6 traditional areas in my constituency. So it was a mobile team, and within the 5-day period, it was very, very, very effective. They also were able to leverage on a new medical facility which we commissioned in October last year, which we are calling the John Evans Atamil Surgical Block. You know, the late president remains my mentor and icon, and we have honored him by having the first edifice in my constituency that will continue to, if you like, shed light on the compassion and the kind of humanity, modest approach that he brought to leadership.
And those are some of the pictures you see
those are the
in your
pictures,
currently.
of the fumigation and disinfection that we did. So the surgical block, Benji, if you come look at it, you'll think that you are in a very urban area. Many people see the pictures and ask, is that really North Tongue? Because you don't expect that kind of facility normally in rural Ghana. But we've pulled it off. It was a very beautiful partnership with a Spanish NGO and then an American NGO. So the Spanish NGO helped me with the shell, the actual construction of the building. Just had to do a 10% contribution, and then the American NGO helped.
So you personally contributed 10%?
Yes, the American NGO helped me with the equipment. With that one, you have to contribute 20%. And so very.
So how did you pull this off from your standpoint? Beautiful. Was it from your common fund?
Yes.
So what you got from the common fund?
So what I got from the common fund, and then personal contributions as well. The common fund was not adequate, so I had to use personal resources. And then I always reach out. I always have this pool of friends, donors, most of them illustrious sons and daughters from the constituency. And I always share my plan. So every year we have, a roadmap, what we want to achieve in the year, and I share it. Like what we'll be doing later this week, which is a surprise. So if I can just conclude on the surgical block, the north bank of the Volta River, that entire enclave, does not have a surgical block. So anytime there is need for surgical services, even for basic things such as C-section for our mothers, we have to always, transfer them either to Akosombo or to Ho, or bring them to Accra, Tema. But now we have
a facility
that can take care of them. And fortunately, I have also been able to attract a top professional, a doctor. We put out a nice package, a furnished building, rent-free, and that helped us to attract the first doctor for that enclave. So that's going very, very well. I can also talk about other expansions we've done at the Bator Catholic Hospital, the pediatric ward, the maternity ward. We've done expansions in all of those facilities. We've brought in new equipment. The medical equipment I brought in for the Atamil surgical block, there were so many. It was a 40-footer container, fully loaded. So in a general spirit, we were able to assist all the health centers in North Tongue, but it spilled over to the regional hospital in Ho, to about 17 constituencies in the country, including our tertiary facility, the Kolebu Teaching Hospital. We made sure that the Kolebu Teaching Hospital was not left out. Because you see, if we're talking about integrated health delivery, there are certainly some conditions that the kind of expertise required, the specialists you need, you don't have them at the district hospital. So you have to necessarily carry out some transfers. There has to be a transition from the district hospital to these tertiary facilities. And so we thought that it was necessary to be more outward looking and not grab everything for ourselves. So we made sure that the medical facilities that we brought in, we had Kolebu also benefiting, because in the chain, when you do the transfers, sometimes the regional hospital can take care of your patients, but other times, even the regional hospital will have to rely on a tertiary facility. So in the full spectrum, the entire chain,
you were able to aid along.
We're able to assist, and it's been very good.
So some very important points you've made, and kudos to you for these drives. So it's said that it's not government alone that builds a country. So individuals can also contribute their bits, and you appear to be doing that, not just for your community, but the larger masses. But I'd like to find out very quickly from you. I want us to talk about the NDC and how things are panning out. I saw this message, though.
I thought before that you wanted to touch on the furniture and footwear bank. Just 30 seconds. Because I made mention of it.
Yes, you made
mention of it.
Is it still going on?
It's still going on. And then only last week we did another deployment. And you see, if you relate what we have done in Northton to your recent documentary, the Ghana Schools of Shame, you notice that interventions like that are really, really
crucial. And in fact, I have tabled that. So we'll be getting back to it so we can focus more on education.
Great.
Just a quick one, though. I see this message come in. Dako Sioti Benjamin on our live feed says, future president. It just hit me. Is that something you've ever aspired to? We know that our current president had nurtured the dream for a while. Is that something you've ever thought of? Has it ever crossed your mind? Would you ever contemplate that?
To be honest with you, I have a different philosophy about that. I take the view that every generation, every season, and its leaders, and you leave it to the people to decide. So I think it's
you see yourself?
It's very arrogant.
Do you see yourself in the mode of
to impose yourself or
John Ejekum Kufuor,
assume that you are the best to do the job.
What do you think of the former president, John Ejekum Kufuor? People speak very highly of him. Yeah. Every leader has his highs and lows. Yeah. He had been in service all the way from the Buzia era. He had served, and he nurtured the dream, and he became. The current president, same. So I think it's only a fact. I don't think people would take it as arrogance, but people would then watch you and say, look, okay, so what are the things you would do? So is it something that has ever crossed your mind? I mean, just be open.
Honestly, I haven't given it a serious thought.
You've never given it a serious thought?
Yeah. I take the view that just do what you are giving now very well and make an impact. And let's see what tomorrow holds. Every generation, every season, based on the context, based on the challenges, and the skill sets required, to lead the people. The people will decide.
Let's talk the NDC. And it appears all is not well with your party, especially in respect of that latest reshuffle in Parliament. There's been a back and forth between some members of Parliament who are for, others who are against, others supposedly with a petition, others saying, I remember speaking to Ashaiman MP and Esnogbe who said, no, I've not signed anything, I'm not a petitioner, and all of that. When you look at the NDC currently, are crevices beginning to develop in your front?
I have had opportunity to comment on the current developments in my party. My view was and still is that if you look at the current situation in our country, we are in very turbulent, chaotic times. We're really in crisis. I mean, see what's happening with the domestic debt exchange program, where so many people are being compelled to take haircuts. People have made life investments and they can't have access to it. Only last week, Bishop Ajinasari, the respected clergyman, shared his own...
Perez Chapel.
Of Perez Chapel, shared his own, experience, where he said that he has, invested up to 106,000 Ghana cedis, and when he went back on maturity to take back his investment, he was told that he cannot have it unless he's willing to accept 1,000 cedis every week. That will mean that he needs 106 weeks before he can, receive his money. And he said that, look, it then really dawned on him that this whole domestic debt exchange, talk, it's more dire than he had initially contemplated. So you have that situation. You have, the avalanche of corruption reports. Look at the Auditor General's report on COVID-19. Look at our own exposés, National Cathedral and other matters that will be
But what do all of these have to do with your own internal cracks and crevices?
So the Ghanaian people expect us. Remember that we received a petition from the domestic debt holders, the individual debt holders, association, Senyor Hosi, Martin Pebu, and the others, Gerhard Mensah and the others, who are the leaders of those groups. And they expect us to be focused on those matters, to offer leadership, to be their voice, because that's why they sent us to Parliament. So the point I'm making is that this is a needless distraction. And so some of us have...
A needless distraction?
Yes. So,
orchestrated by the leadership of your party?
So some of us have been urging colleagues that we have to quickly close ranks, deal with this matter expeditiously, and move on to the national issues.
So you can sense that this is divisive. This exercise has been divisive.
It has been most unwelcome, and it's not, kept us focused on the things that matter to Ghanaians. Because I've received lots of messages that, oh, you guys, when we need you to speak for us, we need you to address this matter, we need you to, take on, this particular sector, you're turning the guns on yourselves. So that's why I have refused to sign up to any of the petitions. I think that some of us should try and position ourselves as peacemakers.
So you're playing the role of a Humpty Dumpty, so to speak. You're being a neutral.
Yes, and most importantly, calling all colleagues, all sides, that look, let's close ranks. Let us not escalate. Let's rather de-escalate. This has happened already, but we should not let it fester. We should not, use language that will be caustic and that will make the healing process more
get
difficult.
what you mean from that end, but did the leadership of your party get it right with this move? Did they get it right?
You see, I have always said that internal matters should be addressed internally. There is talk of a caucus meeting this week where the party leadership, the Council of Elders, will meet us. I think that in that meeting, some of us will be very clear on how, going forward, we can do things better and learn lessons so that we do not spill over and create the kind of negative attention which we have attracted. So I normally will not discuss internal matters outside, and because really it's only
but these are internal matters that have come out anyway.
It only helps to deepen the cracks and to widen the schisms, which we do not want at this point. So let me assure you that knowing the NDC, how strong we are, how formidable we are, we've gone through even more turbulent times. We will surmount this hurdle. We will come together. We must apologize to the good people of Ghana who really have not been impressed and who think that we are losing focus, we are being distracted. I think that the Ghanaian people deserve an apology for this, if you like, avoidable episode and spectacle. But very quickly.
So are you apologizing on behalf of the party? Are you apologizing on behalf of the NDC?
I think that all of us, that should be the approach, when we get the opportunity to speak to the Ghanaian people, who are looking up to us as a government in waiting, as an alternative, government, who want us to focus on the things that matter to them, because people are really suffering. People are really in distress. the crisis we find ourselves in. I mean, look at, the Bank of Ghana's, latest report. Look at where the public debt is, about 575 billion, more than 100% of GDP. I mean, we've been downgraded everywhere, from Fitch to Moody's to Standard & Poor's. Our banks are being downgraded. Financial institutions.
I mean, these are ones we know already.
Workers are being laid off. There's a lot of pain and anguish in the land.
So you are admitting by saying all of this, you are admitting that the NDC currently is failing that ordinary Joe out there, the Kwamna, the Ya, who may be thinking, I want a fresh alternative. Plead my case for me in the court of parliament. Yes. You admit that the NDC is failing them right now. With what is happening, you admit your party is failing them.
I must admit that that's not what the ordinary Joe on the street wants to see from the alternative. Because the opposition really becomes the voice of the voiceless. We are those who can better articulate, particularly when you have a government that really doesn't want to listen, is on, a frolic of their own. So I must concede that it's a needless distraction. It's a needless distraction because the number of petitions we have received. I personally received a petition not too long ago from NAPCO workers who say that since they've been home, since the program was cancelled, their arrears, 9 months plus some of them 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, during the period they were working, have not been paid. And you go through the 2023 budget, there is no allocation for those arrears to be settled. So all of these people, school feeding caterers, have petitioned us that they are not being paid. CHAS is up in arms. There's no funds for feeding, in our schools. These are the matters that, are of utmost importance to our people. And those are the things they want to hear us articulate. I mean, I have been called by a number of students abroad on scholarship who say that government has not released their stipends for a whole semester, some for more than a year. So when you have these very, very, very crucial matters, the last thing all of these people who are petitioning you, who are calling you to speak for them, to intervene on their behalf, to haul ministers to parliament and hold them accountable, they don't want to see that, you don't even have time to consider their petitions, to speak on their behalf, and that you are rather engaged in this, internal tussles over leadership.
But internal tussles come up from time to time in the ruling administration. They've had their own tussles. I mean, famous among them, that bit in respect of Ken Ofori-Atta, the Minister of Finance, and for the first time in the Fourth Republic, members of the majority side going against their own finance minister. But I'd like to find out from you, barring all the problems that we've seen, do you think it is high time your party had a new leadership in Parliament?
So you see,
is the change apt? Is it apt based on what has been said? We need someone who is abreast of the economic issues, Dr. Kasilato Forsen. We need the Honorable Boaz when it comes to energy-related issues, infrastructure, and the others. Then the point is also made, like we heard your chairman say in London recently, that we also need a leadership that cooperates with the Speaker of Parliament. We saw the interactions or the banter between Muntaka and the Speaker, some of them turning out to be a bit unpleasant and all of that. Don't you think it is apt?
So you see, in this conversation, if care is not taken, you can easily come across as being for or against. I have enormous respect for all of these people at the center of this controversy, which I have said is avoidable, and we must concede that it's a distraction. The Ghanaian people are not impressed with that distraction. So all of these people, the Haruna-led team, the Atu Forsen-led new team.
So you're conceding that you have two leaderships, so to speak, in Parliament now?
That have been announced.
No, is that what you're saying? You have two different leaderships in Parliament?
All of these people have their strengths, have enormous potential, capacity, We have seen what they are capable of doing in their various roles. You know, some of them have been former ministers, some have been in various leadership positions, ranking members and all of that. Some have led the house. So these are people that I have incredible amount of respect for. I am not going to be here and speak as though, you know, one side is not needed now. Everybody is needed. And if you look at the numbers...
But I'm sure Okudzeto and Blackwell, when you dig into your heart of hearts,
if you look at the numbers...
You have thought on the merit, on the strength of what we've seen, and you know whether or not it is good to have this new crop in place at this time. You do. You may want to play the role of a neutral, but deep within you, I want to believe you do. I know how incisive you can be. I'm sure you've deliberated on the matters, and you know very well, is this apt at this point in time, barring the procedural problems?
Benji, I know you will agree with me that in these very sensitive times, when matters are so fluid, it does not help our caucus when colleagues go out there and pitch for a camp.
I don't think expressing your thoughts, Cletus Avoka,
yes,
your former minority leader, well, at a point,
yes,
leader in parliament, stated his position. Recently, he did a volte-face and came and apologized to Dr. Kasialato Forson. Yes. People have expressed their views, their sentiments, without necessarily saying, we had Roxanne Nelson, Dafiamekbo, South Nai, come and say that, look, I think it is apt at this point in time, but procedural problems. So I don't think it's a matter of towing any line.
Yeah, but if you have followed the fallout from all those discussions and public pronouncements, it has not been well received, and it has, in very, obvious terms, deepened the cracks. I do not want to follow that, particularly with the benefit of hindsight. For those who spoke much earlier, as soon as it happened, you can spare them, you can grant them, a lot of, room that, look, the spur of the moment, they were caught up in the whole situation, they were in a state of shock. But those of us now talking to you after many days, I don't think that we have any excuse to further, deepen our woes. I think that at this point, the most responsible thing to do is not to be talking about who is best for this period, this era, who should go to the back benches and all of that. We should just be appeasing all sides, pleading with everybody. Fortunately, the Council of Elders have stepped in. They are meeting with the various, factions. Those who submitted a petition were met yesterday. I'm told that another group will be met today, and then likely by Thursday or Friday, they will meet the larger caucus. I would not want to be seen derailing all of those.
What are your expectations? What are you hoping when that meeting happens? So two things, very quickly, because there are a host of matters we want to digest. What are your expectations from that meeting, and how soon do you think the NDC should get its house in order as far as this is concerned to prevent further deterioration of any opinion the people may have of your side in Parliament?
My expectation, and I'm passionate about that, is that very quickly, the Council of Elders, I mean, like yesterday, the Council of Elders should just nip all of what is going on in the bud, bring everybody together very, very quickly, and they should engage the caucus very quickly. You see, what has been happening in previous periods have been that this is done behind the scenes very quietly, and the public is only told the results. Now it's like the process and all of the debates and the internal considerations are all out there. It's not helpful. We must close ranks. Matters that should be discussed internally should be kept internal, and very quickly resolve this and focus on the national issues, the bread and butter matters, which are of concern to the Ghanaian people.
Just to cap off the conversation, I want to clarify with you. So you think, now that the NEC is stepping in and all these considerations and jaw-jawing is happening, all of this could have been avoided, right?
You see, the NDC as a party, this is not the first time we are going through leadership changes. If you look at our first crop of leaders, led by J.H. Owusu-Achampong from 1993. Then Dr. Kwabena J came in after 6 years. Then you had the Bagbin era. Then you had the Dr. Kumbuo, Cletus Avoka, the Honorable Haruna Idrisu. How is it that after all these years of experience, all of these changes have been effected in time past without all the circumstance, the controversy, and all of these, negative attention that we are attracting onto ourselves? So lessons must be learned, and those lessons must be learned quickly. How did we do these things in the past that all the names have mentioned, from 1993, the J.H. Owusu-Achampong era, Dr. Kwabena J, to Bagbin, Kumbuo, Cletus Avoka, and all of these people who have had the opportunity to lead the caucus? We didn't have this spillover, this turmoil, and we continued to, serve the Ghanaian people to the best of our ability. So I would submit strongly that we must quickly learn lessons, and moving forward, we should avoid this. But what the Ghanaian people want to see us do very quickly is to close ranks, come together, and assure them that, look, we have put this matter behind us. These are the leaders. This is the team. Because remember, the statement also said that the new leaders will be tasked to make proposals to the party on the various ranking positions, deputy ranking.
Obviously, all of that will be affected.
And other leadership.
Even the leadership of PAC likely will be affected.
And
James
all of that,
Kluchaveji.
So there's a lot of work to be done.
Right.
We should hurry with it, get it done as quickly as we can, and focus on the matters, because we are in crisis. This country is in a mess.
This country is in a mess. We don't know whether your party itself is not in a mess of its own. There's this message that comes through, a very prominent figure, I'll not mention his name. After the show, I'll let you know. But he says, it is not often that a Blackwa finds it difficult to share an opinion. It is a difficult situation, so please be kind to him on the NDC bit. After the show, remind me. I'll let you know who it was who sent in the message. But let's talk about the National Cathedral.
Yes.
$400 million project, initially pegged at $100 million. Now we are looking at about 4 times the figure. And in fact, interestingly, we had a similar situation with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, where you were a former deputy minister, a project ballooning from about 1-point-something million to just about 7 million, if you recall that latest incident. But focusing on the National Cathedral.
I was deputy education minister, but I'm
deputy education minister, ranking in Parliament.
On the Foreign Affairs Committee.
Thanks for that update. Now, looking at the National Cathedral, you've paid close attention to it. What do you make of the project as it stands now? We've been told that even a loan could be contracted to continue with the project. Yeah. In Parliament, you jettisoned the 80 million Ghana cedi push because is it the tourism ministry couldn't substantiate, the finance ministry couldn't give us much. When you look at the National Cathedral now, where it is, what we've expended, what you people know in Parliament and what you may not know, where are we and what are your thoughts, even before we get to the Board of Trustees and the Kusi-Boateng issues and all of that?
So let me state ab initio that even the cost of $400 million, which has been bandied about, that cost is no longer viable. It's no longer tenable.
Has it gone up?
The analysis that I have done is going to cost the Ghanaian taxpayer more than $1 billion, and we have to be honest.
Wait, hold on.
Yes.
You're saying that per the analysis you and who have done, is it the minority?
I have been asked to lead the effort, so yes.
As in the minority in Parliament?
Yes.
Per the analysis you have done, you've spoken to experts, I guess.
Yes.
We are actually expected now to expend over $1 billion on the National Cathedral.
Exactly.
No longer $400 million.
No longer 400.
You're telling me we're going to expend about 1/3 of what we're going to the IMF for.
Exactly. So let's reflect.
Please break it down.
So this is documentation submitted to us in Parliament when we asked for the breakdown of the 339 million Ghana cedis spent so far. When you go through this document, and I'll share it with you. The current estimated cost of construction as at February 22 last year was 383 million. That is just for the construction. However, there are so many exclusions. There are a tall list of items that are excluded. So the professional fees are excluded, and this includes payments to the architects and all of those, designers and other professionals.
So David Ajay and Associates and all of those.
It's all excluded. Then the items under consideration, excavations, rock works, that's excluded. Site instructions, subcontract appointments, excluded. Savings on import duties, excluded. Escalation of construction costs due to COVID and global inflation is excluded from the contract.
And we've seen how inflation has changed the prices of something you would have wanted to buy some months ago is now twice, thrice the price.
That's huge.
Right.
Yes, that's really going to, have a substantial impact on this project. Then extension of time claims and cost implications of same. Finance charges on unpaid amounts to main contractor. So all of these unpaid amounts to the main contractor, they are compounding. Then standing time claims from main contractor, the standing time, as they are not working. And you know that since the 14th of March last year, they've not been working. Abortive and reworks costs due to the main contractor suspension. After this long period of suspension, they would have to do reworks. All of that is going to lead to an escalation of the cost. And I have,
but an escalation that would add on about $600 million.
Yes. I'm giving you the full breakdown. I'm not done yet. Then you have also excluded the museum displays and the fit out. So the cost of $400 million, which was put out there initially, does not include the fit-ins, the artifacts. Artifacts can be very, very expensive, particularly if you want to, go for, the antique, the original artifacts, because people are not going to travel to come view an empty shell. They want what you are
replicas.
What you are really
want
going
some
to market.
originality.
Yes,
right.
What you are really going to market is the artifacts in there, the museum displays, the fit-ins. It is all excluded. Then you have to also factor in, because of what I call the reckless model we adopted, where we demolished edifices, structures, to pave way for the construction of this National Cathedral project. We have a huge compensation bill that we have to take care of. And let me go through the list. You have to add all of this to the cost of this project. So the Malian ambassador's residence was demolished. I have seen the agreement. We have promised the Malians that we will relocate them to airport residential. We know the cost of land at airport residential. We will construct a new ambassador's residence for them. You have to add that cost. Then there are two private entities whose properties were demolished.
Was it the Waterstone or something?
Waterstone Realty, an apartment complex, a luxury apartment complex, demolished. 180 workers have gone home. They are jobless now. They have not been compensated. They are currently at the High Court. If you look at the current exchange rate of what they are demanding, it's now hovering around 200 million Ghana cedis. So the Waterstone Realty compensation, you have to factor that in. COMSIS.
And that should be plus or minus about $20 billion.
Yes. The COMSIS IT firm, their full compensation has not been honored. So they are also standing by. Then you come to the judiciary. A number of judicial facilities belonging to that arm of government were demolished. The judges' bungalows. You have to factor in the hundreds of thousands of dollars that we are paying for their rent temporary accommodation, then you must factor in the millions of Ghana cedis we are spending on constructing new buildings for them at cantonments to move in. You must add all of that. Then there is the Judicial Training Institute, which was demolished.
Right.
Now, I have seen the Chief Justice's proposal to a number of banks where he is looking for $50 million to construct a new Judicial Training Institute. Then you come to a number of other installations. The passport office was demolished. The passport office, we have had to spend 10 million Ghana cedis for where they are relocated now. Then remember that the scholarship secretariat was also demolished. So when you put all of these institutions together who are now demanding compensation, replacement from the Malian ambassador.
So the net cost will be
when you
add on about $600 million.
Yes, together with the exclusions, it will add on about $600 million to the $400 million.
I have an interesting question
about $1 billion that the Ghanaian taxpayer.
The president says they're going to go through with this project. They will complete it by or around the time the next elections come up. If the project is completed at the cost that you are stating, should your party come to power, what are you going to do? Will you sustain the project? What will you do?
So let me burst your bubble. The president's continuous assurances to the Ghanaian people, to be very sincere with you, is a pipe dream. It is building castles in the skies. It's not going to happen. Why? I hold in my hands here the termination letter Ribade JV, and Ribade is a joint venture made up of Rizani Dieka, Babisoti, and Disimoni. They came together to form this joint venture called Ribade. On the 14th of March 2022, they sent out this notice of termination of appointment to all their staff. And it reads, due to the lack of payment from National Cathedral of Ghana, which has resulted in the project being suspended, Ribade Company Limited are required under the contract to mitigate costs. In compliance with such an obligation under the contract, Ribade Company Limited has no option but to issue this letter of notice terminating the agreement between Ribade Company Limited and you as per the provisions of your employment agreement. This notice of termination takes effect on the 14th of March 2022. You are therefore requested to hand in all properties, that is safety equipment, etc., belonging to the company in your possession to the HR office by close of work of the same day. Yours faithfully, Grant Ramsey, project manager, signed. So since the 14th of March, we are now approaching 11 months of this project having been terminated or suspended. So that is lost time. This project originally, if you look at the original schedule, they were hoping that they could complete it in March 2024 if everything went on smoothly, there were no suspensions, no delays, and what have you. As we speak, we've lost 10 months. There is no indication that Ribade will remobilize and go back to site. The fundraising has not gone well because of all the controversies, the conflict of interest, the corruption, the opacity that has epitomized this project. So there is absolutely no way this project will be completed before President Akufo-Addo leaves office. It's not possible.
Point made. But if it were, what would the NDC do? Very briefly on that point.
Would
you use it? Look at what used to be Flagstaff House, now Jubilee House. You swore, as a party that you wouldn't use it. Some even said it was going to be turned into a hen coop and all of that. When your presidents have come, you have used the Jubilee House. So tell me, let's hypothesize very briefly. If it is complete, what are you going to do? Will you use the National Cathedral?
I don't answer hypothetical questions because I know for certain that it cannot be completed.
If it were, what would you do?
You see, it's about the Ghanaian people deciding. And let me be clear, the matter to do with I've heard this, said oftentimes, they don't give you any specific name. I don't know any NDC official who said that the Jubilee House or the Flagstaff House will not be used. I don't know any official who said that it will be converted into a hen coop. But I've heard this being bandied about all over the place, and they don't put a name to it. Who said it? When was it said?
Let's spend some 2 minutes to just reflect on the Kusi Boateng scenario and the Board of Trustees resignations by some key figures on the board. Just some 2 minutes, because there are other crucial issues to look at. You've taken the matter to Shraj, but there are other matters that you've brought to bear in the media which did not form part of your petition to Shraj. What's the latest you can tell us on that?
So this Board of Trustees really, let me be honest with you, that in an ideal situation, the board should be dissolved and we should be having a full-scale probe. There should be a forensic audit in the activities of the National Cathedral of Ghana.
But something similar is already being done. Duncan Williams, Eastwood Anaba called for something of the sort. I think Deloitte is going to get into the matter.
Except that what they requested fully was not heeded to. They wanted a suspension, outright suspension. That was not heeded to. The board is trying to find a middle ground. And there can be no middle ground, really. And then the really scandalous matter relating to Reverend Victor Kusi Boateng. And now, to be honest with you, I don't even know what really is his name. Is he Reverend Victor Kusi Boateng, as he was appointed, as the website of the National Cathedral shows, as the incorporation documents, copies of which I have here, when they were all asked to bring in their IDs so that the National Cathedral of Ghana is incorporated on the 18th of July, 2019. He submitted an ID, an expired driving license. I don't know why it was used and why our
But it's an expired document. It doesn't count. You know that.
You know, however, he says, he's Reverend Victor Kusi Boateng. Even the statement he issued, reacting to my exposés, the letterhead says Reverend Victor Kusi Boateng. That's how he signs. And his website, his church, his Facebook page, and all of that, it's Reverend Victor Kusi Boateng. So he's actively using that name. However, other documents in my possession now, including the Ghana card, which I have obtained, is in the name Kwabena Edu Jemfi. Now, why this is significant is that, remember that when we asked for a breakdown of how the 339 million Ghana cedis was utilized, the National Cathedral Secretariat brought us this document where they claimed that they had paid 2.6 million Ghana cedis to JNS Talent Center Limited for contractors mobilization. I know that the only contractor is Rebade. JNS is not a contractor. So why are they receiving contractors mobilization?
It's been clarified that he paid some money in advance for some aspects of the project to continue, and later the sum of money was refunded to him. Is that a crime?
I won't call that a clarification. They further muddy the waters. This is your own document to us. Nowhere in this document did you say that this was a loan repayment. You said it was contractors mobilization. When you go through all the pile of documents, you don't see any loan agreement. You don't see any board resolution. You don't see any minutes of the board requesting a loan. And indeed, the bank statement of the National Cathedral Secretariat I have obtained from ADB, at the time they claimed that they were in financial difficulty and needed 2.6 million desperately on the 26th of August. That letter, which clearly is an afterthought, no reference number, they had 8 million Ghana cedis in their account. Then, interestingly, when we asked the finance minister to let us have the full releases to the National Cathedral Secretariat, when you go through that document, you see that that same period, on the 19th of August, the finance minister had authorized the release of 58 million Ghana cedis. Can you believe that? 58 million Ghana cedis to the secretariat. So this is not a secretariat.
From where? The contingency fund or the contingency vote?
I mean, that's all hogwash. It's our money. It's from the consolidated fund.
Yes, all of there are certain things that can be done from the contingency fund and others that can be done from the contingency vote.
Yes, and we contend that National Cathedral is not a contingency, cannot be. And that is why in the 2023 budget, the finance minister had to do the right thing by departing from this, ridiculous definition of what contingency. Contingency is something unforeseeable, something you can't predict. And he himself, at the vote of censure hearing, cited the Black Stars, which is apt. When Black Stars are playing a tournament, you don't know how far they will go, whether second round, quarterfinals, semi-finals. So that can be contingency. But not a project that, as far back as May 2018, you commenced demolitions. These mindless, senseless demolitions that were carried out. And we've lost edifices that we should never. Scholarship Secretariat, for example, should have been preserved for eternity. We've lost all of those. Now, that cannot be contingency. So it is important to emphasize that it is these investigations into the scandalous payment to JNS Talent Center Limited that led us to the discovery that a director of JNS Talent Center Limited, by name Kwabena Edujemfi, apparently is the same person as Reverend Victor Kusi-Boateng. And what is clear is that he has actively used this dual identity. So when he operates as Kwabena Edujemfi, he has a different mother, who he says is Ya Jemfua. He has a different date of birth, which he declares on statutory documents to state institutions that his date of birth is 30th December 1969. And he has a different TIN. As we speak, Kwabena Edujemfi has registered 8 companies, and as recent as last week, the 16th of January, he registered the Dunamis Insurance Company Limited, well incorporated, only last week. So it tells you that he's actively using Kwabena Edujemfi. Indeed, when he travels, and I have tracked his recent travels to Togo, to Equatorial Guinea, and to Dubai, he's using a diplomatic passport, a copy of which I have here. The diplomatic passport he's using was issued as recent as 25th November 2021. It expires 24th November 2026 with passport number DX006845. So this is a man who has been appointed as Reverend Kusi-Boateng. We are told that he needs a diplomatic passport to aid his work, to facilitate his job, and yet that diplomatic passport is issued in the name Kwabena Edujemfi. That's why we have said that when Parliament resumes, the foreign minister has serious questions to answer. Okay. So that is Kwabena Edujemfi. Now, when he's operating as Reverend Victor Kusi-Boateng, he has different sets of IDs, different mother. He says his mother is Agnes Atta. He says his date of birth is 7th September
I have seen
1971. Those. And then he has a different TIN. He's registered 7 companies in that name, some as recent as 2021 in the Kwabena Edujemfi. So this is somebody who concurrently, simultaneously, is using dual identity. And that is what aids him to engage, in this naked conflict of interest, where you are sitting at the board of trustees and you are paying monies to your company, which really, there's no contract, there's no loan agreement, there's no justification.
Can you clarify that? So are you suggesting that the 2 names also come with 2 different tax identification numbers?
Yes. Yes, right. which is against Ghanaian law, as you
right. Just to wrap up on that point. So you've petitioned Shraj now. What if Shraj emerges with a report and clears him? Then what?
I really don't see that happening.
Because your initial set of facts or evidence are very different from what the other supporting bits you've come up with. What you presented to Shraj was a very different petition from what you're saying now.
No, not at all. Have you seen my petition?
Have you added on all of these
I have
to
a
Shraj?
copy. Yeah. There's a copy of...
So you're saying that Shraj is going to be looking at everything we're discussing up to this point?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Shraj has all of that. I have all the IDs, all the supporting documents. It's just that in my public, engagement, I decided to
you held some off.
To stagger.
Let's take a quick look at education. You saw our recent documentary, Ghana Schools of Shame, and we heard from the education minister saying that it was a shame that we would come up with something of the sort. People have roundly condemned his reaction. But when you look at our educational setup, especially as a former deputy education minister, that is in the Pandai districts of the northern region, but also replicated in many other parts of our country, and then you put that side by side with this school placement saga. What can we really do? People are taking as much as 11,000 CDs to place people in institutions. What can we do differently? Very brief on that.
Yeah. If you give me just 30 seconds to close the Cathedral discussions, I just want to place on record that last week I raised 2 RTI requests to the Registrar General's Department and to the Ghana Revenue Authority. Our institutions must work. I want to know what internal investigations have commenced into this whole scandal. How were they dribbled so, embarrassingly, that they didn't know that for more than 12 years, this same person has been operating in a dual role and registering companies. The GRA as well. How come that the Revenue Administration Act is very clear? You cannot have 2 things. He has them, and he's operated for more than 12 years. How did they allow this to happen? What lapses allowed
So that
this?
point is made. Let's get to that.
So I want you to know that has happened. And then I'm now on the NIA as well. How did this popular prophet obtain a Ghana card in a different name in Kwabena Edujemfi? So we're going after the institutions as well. When Parliament resumes, we'll be summoning the heads of these institutions. We want our institutions to work. We've always talked about having strong institutions, and that's the way to go about these matters. So let me come to education now. First of all, let me commend your team. You and your colleagues have done a great job with these documentaries and these investigative pieces that you've put out. It's quality work, top-notch journalism, and they ought to be commended. That is why when I was here last week, I took the minister on. The minister should have been commending you instead of berating your colleagues and chastising the work that you have done. All of us, when we were in government, we rely on the media because you don't always get the reports you expect from your, the regions, the districts, even the circuits, all the way down to your circuit supervisors. Sometimes, bottlenecks and all of that. So when journalists point you to where there are challenges, you should quickly embrace it and support.
We have to go shortly, so you'd have to.
Yeah. So I have said that the solution to that really is to immediately decentralize education. I recall that we started some work in that direction. That President Mahama, we were going to decentralize education and health. He set up an interministerial committee. I think the report was ready, but implementation has not been effected. When you do that, you fully decentralize. You empower the district director of education. You resource the director, and they can have resources to, as it were, address these challenges at the micro level. Let me also add that the government must take a second look at its priorities in education. I hear all kinds of fanciful things being announced. And when you look at the reality, when children don't have food, when there is no furniture, when children are lying on their bellies, and there are no textbooks, you should not be announcing, free tablets, and we are building STEM schools and all of that. Yeah, those things are not bad per se, but you see, basics, the foundation. When your foundation is weak, you cannot be doing those things. So we must see reprioritization. So the solutions I prefer are 2. 1, let us decentralize. Let's empower the district education directorates. And then number 2, let us reprioritize. There are too many of these fanciful projects happening at the center for just a few selected, grade A schools, luxury initiatives, which can wait. Okay. That's my view on that matter. Finally, on the school placement saga, there is absolutely no reason why this should happen. When we were at the ministry, we announced no protocol, and Professor Nana Jopokwajima was very, very passionate about that. When you create protocol systems, that is what it leads to. We must abolish protocol, let everything be based on merit. remove the, discretion, the window for the human. We say we are doing a computerized placement system. Let it be computerized.
All right. In some 10 seconds, we're going. Article 71, office holders must take 50% haircut. The Ghana Federation of Labor says so. Do you agree with them? Just give me a straight-up answer.
I totally agree, and I even go more than that.
You agree with them?
I've written extensively that we should amend the Constitution, amend Article 71. My view is that this whole ex gratia thing, let's have an independent emoluments commission that should determine working conditions of everybody in the three arms of government.
Right.
And then we should even take a second look at ex gratias. We should let those who are leaving be those who benefit. If you win your election, you are re-elected, you should have a different package for those who are continuing workers, because it's creating this gulf and this needless animosity, this acrimony. And
so you agree with them, basically?
It makes us appear insensitive. So I think that proposal is not even far-reaching enough. We need to amend the Constitution and take a comprehensive view, overhaul this whole Article 71 architecture. That has always been my view.
Thank you so much for joining us for this conversation. Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa, of course, Member of Parliament for North Tong, and he has been at the forefront of getting accountability for the National Cathedral project. He now says it's going to cost us about $1 billion. Once more, thank you for your time. And that's how we cap off this conversation. But coming up next, we have quite the lineup for you. We'll be talking education and that latest scandal when it comes to the school placement, among others. Do stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hello, good morning. Thank you so much for staying on the AM show. It's now time for us to continue with our big stories, this time focusing on the debt exchange. You may be aware that today is the deadline for individual bondholders to sign onto the program. Already, government has made headway with the banks, insurance, and securities companies. But what is the progress now, and what can individual bondholders do, even as we wait for an official communication on government as to what exactly will be happening after close of day today? Joining me for that conversation is Professor Lord Mensah, lecturer, University of Ghana Business School. We also have Dr. Edu A. Entry, who will be joining the program much later. Let me start with you, Professor Lord Mensah, and thank you once again for joining our program today. Today's deadline day, and we're yet to hear anything from government. We know communication has happened on the agreements reached between the banks, insurers, and securities. What are you expecting, really? Should government listen to the demand of the individual bondholders and let them go off totally, or it can reach a certain agreement even as we wrap up the day today?
Yeah, good morning, and good morning to our viewers. As it stands now, the meeting that the ministry had with the individual bondholders, we don't really know what has come out of it. But then I can tell you that the government needs the buy-in of some of these individual, bondholders to get this bond through, this exchange through. I mean, if we should go by the target that was set, as we speak now, we know the government has gotten the buy-in of the banks. And then together with the Bank of Ghana, and looking at the annual debt report of 2021, I think the government should go through by 50% of the target, if we should go by the numbers then. And so effectively, if the target was 80% to declare the entire exercise a successful one, then the government still needs, more funds to declare that, this was a successful, exercise. So effectively, they still need a buy-in of the individual bondholders. But then the question is, what offer has the government got on the table? I presume that initially on the government came with that kind of all size fits all, debt exchange. And looking at engagement with the banks, and then engagement with the pensions, engagement with the individual bondholders, you could see that now the government is trying to look at how they can, meet the needs of the various, stakeholders in the government bond space. So I think, at the end of the day, if government does not revise its target, then probably we may hear an announcement of an extension, because it looks like they may not be able to hit a target as it came up in the earlier, exchange proposed.
Prof, do I get a sense that you do not agree with the individual bondholders when they say that government does not need them to sign on to this program for it to have a successful debt restructuring? We are told by conveners like lawyer Martin Pebu that they have offered other alternatives to government on how it can go about restructuring this debt exchange. It's debt, I beg your pardon. So are you saying that as a matter of fact, individual bondholders or a certain percentage of that number must sign on to the program for it to be successful?
Well, in exchange of this type, you may have what we call free riders, and you may have what we call those who jump onto the wagon. And then it is expected that at least you may not get everybody to get your buy-in. But then the question is, when the bond exchange goes through, and the interest rate structures that prevail on the market, would you be holding a valuable bond? Those are the questions you may have to ask. So effectively, I'm looking at it from the financial sense. I may not want to go into the law, sense to say whether I agree with individual bondholders or not. The whole exercise is an exercise which is more of a national exercise. At the end of the day, if you don't buy into it, which normally we term it as a free rider, situation, you ask yourself, the bond that you are holding at the time, would it be, valuable on the market? Because at that time, long-term bonds interest rate will be selling at the prevailing rate of the exchange, which we are looking at 10% thereabout. So effectively, who is going to buy a bond that will be, paying coupons of 20%, 19%, 21%? And so we may have to look at all this and then, think through it very well. And what is missing here is the benefit that, these individual bondholders tend to gain when this exercise goes through, which is missing in the communication we've been having every now and then. I mean, clearly, if it turns out that the economy comes back, of course, I agree with them. They may not have that comfort, to accept that the economy is likely to bounce back, because of the history we have with the current administration in terms of when, the space, the fiscal space improves, the way and manner they go about their spending cannot be something that you can rely on. And as a result of that, you may want to hold your old bond. But then let's look at, aftermath of the exercise and think through it and see whether the bond that you'll be holding will be, a valuable bond or not.
Interesting. One of the conveners of the Individual Bondholders Forum, Senor Husi, has asked members not to panic, obviously because it's deadline day, nothing substantive has been said. I was just going through the Minister of Finance and the Ministry of Finance Twitter pages just before I came on air. And apart from announcing that Ghana's debt exchange program has made some progress, there's nothing real, substantive being said with regards to the individual bondholders. What should the individual bondholders be doing now, considering the fact that we've not heard anything from government? Should they wait, or should they sign on to it? Can government make that decision? Like you've just said, what would the real value of their bonds be if this debt exchange program goes through? Should they take the risk, or should they hold on?
Well, if you look at the happenings, if it were not to be the position of the government to impose, the entire debt exchange program on the bondholders earlier on, I thought maybe that bilateral kind of, engagement was very necessary, even though it came in later. I believe that over the past few days, the engagement they've had with the ministry has put up something that they may have, confidence in to say that, okay, fine, government has exempted us and we are comfortable. But then in the end, if government should exempt you from it, like I said earlier, aftermath of the exchange, would government continue to be able to pay you your 20%, 19%, and then the 25% thereabout that as proposed in the exchange, the bond that you are holding? Those are the questions we may have to ask. You see, this entire exercise is about, holding up an instrument that you can have access to your funds. This is more or less a systemic failure. And when a system is failing, it is expected that one way or the other, you get a compromise, but not to the kind of harsh compromise that, the finance minister proposed earlier on, looking at 0% in 2023 and then 5% thereon, with a 10% coming later. I believe that with a serious engagement, they should get to a point where the individual buyers, individual bondholders will get the buy-in of the people.
Right. Sorry about that, Prof. You can continue, or you're done with your submission.
Yeah, for now.
All right. Okay. So while this is happening, there are a lot of other things happening within the space. When I say the space, I mean the economic space. So we know the announcement of an increase in the policy rate to 28%. We've also had from the finance minister there's been an oversubscription of treasury bills. Do you see that people are beginning to divert or look at treasury bills because of what's happening within the bond space? Are people beginning to lose interest there? And what do you think generally will be the impact of this whole exercise within the space?
Well, you see, we may have to appreciate that the debt exchange has come to distort, the financial space. It has changed the yield curve completely. If I say the yield curve, I'm looking at the various, financial instruments, their maturities and the interest rate or the coupons that they promise. As we speak now, the treasury bill is one of the highest, instrument you can have in the economy. And I'm not surprised at that, because for every time, the long-term investment or the long-term horizon, poses a threat to the investor tends to reduce its horizon to a point where they bring all their investment into short term. So when I heard the announcement that it's likely treasury bill will be affected, then I said, okay, fine. If treasury bill is affected, then the investor may want to take his or her money away from the bank and then bring it to his house to control it himself. That is what the extreme situation will be. But then if we should look at it, in our investment perspective, clearly every time the long-term investment poses a threat, and we got ours when the announcement was made. An announcement was made in such a way that it was as if an entire restructuring is being imposed on the investor community, which the investor community has no say. Either you take it or you hold it, for which at the end of the day, nobody, cares about what happens to the investment that you are holding.
Hello, Prof.
Somebody muted me. Right. So, so from the... Hello, can you hear me, please?
Yes, I can. Yes, I can, Prof.
Yeah,
please.
From the communication that were coming from the various, government machinery, I sent a signal that if you're holding the bond, you hold it at your own, cost. Your own bond, you hold it at your own cost, which wasn't a good communication, because in the investment space, the hottest commodity that you can have is information. So if information is coming out from especially management, and nobody have access to management information. So whatever you put out there as a manager is what the investor is going to process to take a decision whether they will invest in your bond, which is basically, long-term, relative to short-term. And we see the short-term to be something that you can easily turn to money. And, treasury bills have been capped as near money kind of investment. So most of the time, anytime investment, tends to pose threat in the long term, the investor is going to reduce its horizon. And that is what is happening in the country now, which has affected the yield curve. Treasury bill is promising around, 35.6 thereabout. And then the bonds that we're looking at now, as people are holding it, the old one is going for about 20% on the average. And then if we should go through with this, debt restructuring, we're going to have 10% thereabout, going forward. And so we are looking at the sensitivity of the investment community, the kind of information you put out there. So as we speak now, I'm not surprised at, what is happening, where the demand on Treasury bill is so high, because people have, come to understand that probably Treasury bill may not be affected, and therefore they should be comfortable with that one.
Interesting. Let me now welcome Dr. Edu Entry, convener of the Pensioner Bondholders Forum. Good morning to you, and thanks for joining the program. Now, you at a time in the middle of this month were requesting an exemption from the debt exchange program, and your argument was simple, that if pension funds were exempted, then as pensioners who also held bonds, you needed to be exempted. Have you had any communication from government? We are yet to see an official publication, but as a group, have you had any communication from government as to what is the way forward with you? Well, we lost him, unfortunately. Dr. Edu Entry, convener of the Pensioner Bondholders Forum, was on the line, and I was hoping that he could answer that question for us, but we'll try and rework the lines and get him back on. So back to you, Prof. So as it stands now, well, we don't know what the deal will be. We don't know whether the Finance Ministry is preparing to extend the deadline for the individual bondholders or agree to their deal for an exemption. But while we wait, persons like yourself and others have demanded for government to show some level of commitment itself in our debt restructuring, i.e. downsize government, cut down expenditure. Now, one of the latest to comment about this is the Secretary of the Ghana Federation of Labour, and he is actually asking that Article 71 office holders take a 50% haircut. We are yet to see this, and I'm just wondering if it still sends the wrong signals to persons like individual bondholders that government is not willing to take its fair share.
Well, the exercise that, the economy is going through is an economic reform. We shouldn't look at it as, something that is affecting only bondholders, and as a result of that, they are the ones, that are supposed to defend, their position. We should look at it as a national exercise. As I sit here, I get worried about how, we're going to manage the economy post the exchange. Looking at the trauma and the exposure we've given to the investor community. That's my worry. Government's behavior in terms of, not listening to cutting down or downsizing, the number of our ministries and all those, put fear in some of us. Because of course I'm a Ghanaian and I'm a stakeholder for which at the end of the day, I must get to know what my taxes are doing. And this investment, space, what is happening there, whether directly or indirectly, it affects me as well. So I need to know what exactly government is going to do, post, the debt exchange. We've had a government that has not exhibited that kind of, financial discipline, over the past years, for which everybody is wondering if we should get that fiscal space. Because the essence of this exercise is to make sure that the government, in terms of interest commitment that it has been doing over the years, which has been overburdening, the balance sheet of the economic activities of the country, we reduce interest payment. That is the benefit of the entire exercise. And when government reduces interest payment, there's going to be that kind of inflows in terms of, indirectly, in terms of the interest that government was supposed to pay. And if we are to get an IMF, deal, that is also going to bring in some inflows. Apart from the discipline that IMF will bring in when we go through the program with them, recently they announced of 0% financing from the Bank of Ghana. The earlier IMF deal we had, it was 5% we got from them. And this time they're going to be harsh. They're going to be harsh by declaring 0% financing from the Bank of Ghana, because it didn't take us longer time before we went back to them. So the trends of financial indiscipline has more or less exposed us. And they're in the mindset of citizens like us, and then also individuals who have invested with the government. They know that once the government gets that free fiscal space, and remember we're going into 2024, which is an election year, and you can't joke with government overspending, trends in this country over the past, in this current republic. So effectively, we want government to give that kind of signal. A signal that, yes, I'm prepared to cut down my expenditure. And going forward, that is going to be the momentum that I'm going to use to manage this economy. And we should have had that, signal from the budget that was read before this debt restructuring. I can tell you from the budget that was read that, government knew very well that we will be downgraded, on the international bond market, and as a result of that, we may not have access to the international bond market. And how did I get to know this? If you look at the financing structure of the budget deficit that was declared in the 2022 budget, clearly, government knew very well that access to the international market would have been a problem. So all the financing was concentrated on the, domestic market. So you could see for that particular year, government was looking about 80% financing from the, domestic market. So effectively, the signals were all there. And so I was expecting that going into 2023 and knowing very well that there's, imminent, debt restructuring about to happen, government would have given the citizens a signal that, they're going to cut down expenditure. But that wasn't the case. Expenditure was jumped from, 145 billion to about 250 billion, about 99 billion, expansion in terms of expenditure. Revenue was also jumped from 100 billion to about 145 billion. So effectively, the gap of about 65 billion that, was supposed to be financed has been problem.
And considering all that is happening, Prof, do you find, especially the revenue bits, do you find it realistic?
I saw the entire budget to be kind of a phantom, budget, which I'm expecting that it will go for review. If it does not go for review, the reflection of the domestic debt exchange should come into the media review.
I'll come back to you shortly, Prof. I'm told we have Dr. Eduentri back on the line. He's convener of the Pensioner Bondholders Forum and former Director General of the Securities and Exchange Commission. Good morning to you, and thank you for joining the program. So, in the middle of this month, your forum was demanding an exemption from the debt exchange program, and your reason was simple. You say that if pension funds were exempted, then as pensioners who hold bonds, you should also be exempted. We are yet to receive an official communication from government on deadline day, but have you in any way received any communication of an exemption from the entire deal?
Well, thank you. I didn't get your question well.
I'm asking if you have, hello, Doc, I'm asking if you've received any hint of a total exemption from the deal. Did I lose Doc again? Apologies for that. Apologies for that. We'll try and raise Doc on the phone instead. It appears that we're having a bit of challenge with Zoom there. So back to you, Prof. And I was talking about the alternatives proposed by the individual bondholders to government on how it can raise more revenue or save money so that they are exempted from the debt exchange program. And they talk about reviewing the regulatory environment to increase oil production. Government should exercise its right under the Akakpo Petroleum Agreement for immediate commencement, expedite reforms to enforce property taxes, rise above politics and fully enforce VAT invigilation. They talk about pursuing the recovery of funds lost through financial irregularities of MDAs in the Auditor General's Report 2015 to 2022. So what you heard are just some of the recommendations given by the individual bondholders to government on how it can save money and in order to exempt it from the debt exchange program. We've been able to raise Doc back on the phone. Hello, Doc. Good morning to you once again. Hopefully we have a stable connection now. I was finding out from you if you have received any hint of total exemption from the debt exchange program. Today is deadline day.
Well, we haven't received information on that, the total exemption. But we are still hopeful that we will receive it. We were expecting a statement yesterday. The government hasn't come out with a statement yet, as far as I know. And so we are hoping that we'll get the exemption. We've made a good case for exemption for the pensioners, retirees, whose main source of income these days happen to be, most of them happen to be only the coupons from their investment. So even regardless of the fact that some individuals, general individuals, will not be exempted. For pensioners, they must be exempted. And as I always say, even in our traditional setting, culture, our native wisdom, when you are at the village and you have gotten to a certain stage, they don't let you pay funeral dues. In Sawa, we take you out of contribution towards the burial of the dead because you are weak, you are old, and you are exempted. That is basic native culture and wisdom that we should also be able to do same in our governance. That for the elderly, don't emburden them so much. You don't put so much weight for the elderly to carry. They can't. So even if everybody can carry, the elderly ones must not be made to carry that load that will lead them into their debt.
Doc.
So I believe government will understand and exempt this vulnerable group.
Are you willing to come to a compromise? When we look at what government agreed with the Association of Banks, initially government was not going to pay any coupons for this year, but with the Association of Banks had agreed to pay 5% for 2023 and remove all clauses in the exchange memorandum that give the Republic the mandate to solely vary the terms of exchange. Is this something that you're willing to agree to, or for you it is total
I
exemption?
believe if the government grants the total exemption to pensioners, definitely their bonds are going to mature. If they mature, they will come to the join what is prevailing in the market. So let them go out now from this exchange. Let them continue to take that small coupon they are taking, which they are using, and I can't stress again the fact that this is what they are using for their medication. And if it's not coming, they are bound to end their lives shorter than earlier than what maybe God has ordained them to live. So for us, it should be total exemption. In everything that we do in the whole universe, there are exemptions. You can't let everybody carry the same load. People are being taken care of in the advanced world. The retirees are taken care of. They don't take care of all other people, but the retirees, they supply them with drugs. They give them a lower tariff for even electricity. They take bus free once you are holding a bus pass. So the elderly must be taken care of. So we shouldn't deprive them of that small income they are using to take care of themselves, because society has not been structured to be taking care of the elderly the way it stands elsewhere. So total exemption is what the elderly needs.
Doc, this space is not new to you. You are the former Director General of the Securities and Exchange Commission. Would you say we could have avoided this, getting to this point where we have to discuss a debt restructuring or a debt exchange program?
Well, if you borrow to a certain level and you cannot handle the payments of your coupon and principal, definitely you will land in this area. You come to this position. The borrowing, everybody knows that we have borrowed too much. And if we have limited our borrowing, maybe we wouldn't have been here, and maybe the borrowing, somebody would say it was for projects. But you can't do all projects at the same time, you know. They say Rome was not built in a day. If you want to develop Ghana to become like Dubai in the day, it's not possible. So we should have done it gradually. You take on this project, very high cost project that you are doing. You do 1, 2, 3 projects, and that alone, it's better than spreading our resources over so many projects, and therefore we don't have the resources, and we have to go and borrow to the extent that now we cannot pay our debt. So, well, next time I think government would have to look at it and say, let us cut our quote according to our size. We can't. All the projects are good, but you can't undertake all these projects at the same time when you don't have the resources to finance them, and you have to be depending on loans. And loans have its limits. Once you have borrowed to the extent that you can't pay, that gives you a bigger problem than not borrowing too much and concentrating on few projects and making sure you are doing what you can do.
Interesting. So there's just some information we are putting up on our screens, and it has to do with the parties involved in the debt exchange program, agreements and exemptions. So you can see the pension funds have been exempted, and we know there was a lot of fight and pushback. That was on December 22, 2022. The Ghana Association of Banks reached an agreement with government on January 23rd. Shortly after that, the Ghana Insurance Association, January 26th, and the Ghana Securities Industry on January 27th. What we aren't setting off is individual bondholders, of which the Pensioner Bondholders Forum is a part of. And there was a promise of exemption on January 27th, but that's all it remains, a promise. And we don't know if government will stick to that promise, or we would see any deviation from it. But for you, Dr. Entry, the agreement between the Ghana Association of Banks, Ghana Security Industry, and the Ghana Insurance Association is on our screens right now. I don't know if you've taken your time to go through it, but would you say that that's a fair deal compared to what was being promoted by government earlier?
Yes, there has been some improvement. At least for the first year, the first proposal was 0 coupon. You are not going to get any interest on your bonds. That has been raised to 5. The banks have looked at their balance sheet, their insurance, everybody has, and they think that is okay. I think another major thing that has also been changed was a clause in the offer document, if you want to call it, that invitation document, that government could change certain terms in the document at its own without recourse to anybody. That has been changed because you cannot go in for give a loan to your debtor, and then he has a way of coming back to change the conditions under which you have lent that money to him. That wasn't a good thing, and that has been changed. And I'm told they have also gotten some clear understanding of how the financial stability fund is going to be used, how it is going to be handled. So they are okay with it, and they are moving. We are all fine that at least we have. That's all that about that I kept on saying negotiation. You cannot do this without negotiating with the authorities. So at least that negotiation has been done, and we are moving forward. It's the individual bondholders or individuals that has not been. But I believe the minister, because from the meetings that we have had, I believe the minister would offer something also different, because you cannot let the bank take 5% and tell individuals to take 0%. No. According to the minister, when we were in a meeting, he has even said, well, the individuals might have to get something which is maybe higher or better than the banks. I've also said that individuals are not like corporate, which has a longer life. We will call them in accounts, as a going concern. Until something happens to the organization, it will be there, for years to come. So if companies are giving bonds of 15 years maturity, you don't expect the individual to accept a 15-year bond maturity. We are all hoping we can grow old. We are praying to God, but there is no guarantee that you are going to be alive for the next 15 years. So an individual will not like his bonds to be pushed into a 15-year. So I believe these would be factored in the new arrangements that the government will come out and say, well, individuals have shortened the span, the maturity. I have suggested that individuals should not be, if I have been involved, individuals should not be giving bonds of a maturity about 10 years. No, don't let them go into 10 years. Give them something that is lower than 10 years so that they can say, well, our money will be there. Gradually, we will receive our principal in this, but by the end of the 9th year, we would have taken all our principal back. So I believe that these things will be factored in the new arrangement that the minister will come out. But for the pensioners, it should be total exemption. Right. They can't afford any such arrangement.
From what you've just submitted, I get the sense that even if government will not totally exempt individual bondholders, the subset of pensioners within that group must be totally exempted. You sound quite confident in your talk about the exemption of pensioners. Was there any exclusive promise made to pensioners by government? What was the last thing you heard of with your meetings?
Well, in all the meetings, everybody seems to be understanding that you can't treat the elderly like that. Our society, that society that we live in, we make sure we take care of our elders. That is our culture. That is our tradition. We don't push our elders into their grave. Even when they cannot make it, they are very sick. We still want to support them to live. And then our grandchildren, their great-grandchildren, we will be happy you have given birth and your great-grandchild, and you go and show it. And then mama touch the baby, small baby, and say, oh, Nyamin Shirao. That is our culture. We want the elderly to live for a long period. So nothing should be done to break this. When God has given them some long life, definitely because of these sicknesses, you cannot be strong up to your 120 years or whatever. You will be weak. And that weakness, you will fight it gradually with drugs and medication. And so for these people, vulnerable group, whatever it is, they should be exempted. If nobody at all is exempted, the elderly must be exempted. They have played their role. They have finished their course. As the Bible says, they have finished their course. What again should you ask them to come and contribute? What? The contribution will be by way of advice. They say, Nanayenko Abrewa. But after that Abrewa, we are going to ask, we don't tax the Abrewa to do a work. But we only go and consult and he gives us advice. let us treat our elders the same way. Exempt them. They are there. They don't have any strength to do anything. Again, they have finished their course.
Right,
they
Doc.
need to have some peace.
Briefly, Doc, from you, we heard from Senor Hosi, who is one of the conveners of the Individual Bondholders Forum. He asked his members not to panic. In 30 seconds, I'd like you to send a message to pensioner bondholders on what they should do while we await an official communication from government.
Well, we have said, as the forum, we have said that the pensioners should not tender in their bonds, because we know we will get that exemption for that vulnerable group. Any society, and the minister said in one of his statements, any society that doesn't take care of its elders is not a society we want to build in Ghana. We don't want to see Ghana as a society that doesn't take care of its elders. I have been involved for about 25 years taking care of the elderly. In my village, every Easter and every Christmas, I go around all the elderly people, the sick and the people, to give them something. And they appreciate it. That small thing that you are doing. Because they don't have anything to live on. Please, government should understand and just ensure that these pensioners are exempted so that they can even say the good things about when the elderly, you force them to go into their grave, even on their deathbed, they will be cursing people.
We appreciate your time here.
Who are forcing them to leave this world early.
Thanks for your time here this morning, Doc.
They should be exempted.
Right. We appreciate your time. Dr. Edu Entry is convener of the Pensioner Bondholders Forum and also former Director General of the Securities and Exchange Commission. And earlier you heard Professor Lord Mensah. Prof, your final words, even as we wrap up this, what do you hope to hear from government by close of day today?
Yeah, I think if we did not get any revision or extension, then probably government should assure Ghanaians how he's going to manage the economy post, the debt exchange, so that we can revert the economic situation that we find ourselves in now.
Thank you so much, Prof. Professor Lord Mensah is with the University of Ghana Business School, and you heard him share his thoughts earlier before Dr. Edu Entry. You're still watching the AM show with Bernice and Benjamin. It's now time for us to bring you this week's edition of our Schools of Shame, and this time we focus on textbooks. Remember, the Ministry of Education in 2019 introduced a new curriculum? Well, our checks in the Karachi Trumuru area reveal that schools have received textbooks for just 3 subjects. Yesterday's edition of Schools of Shame with Jojo Kobna.
We are not sparing any efforts to make education in Ghana of the best quality and fit for the needs of the 21st century. In September 2019, a new standard-based curriculum will be rolled out from kindergarten to class 6 in primary schools. This curriculum has drawn upon the best practices from all over the world and will focus on making Ghanaian children confident, innovative, creative thinking, digitally literate, well-rounded patriotic citizens.
That statement was made on 20th February 2019, 3 years after the introduction of the new curriculum. Many basic schools operated without textbooks. Many education stakeholders expressed concerns about no textbooks in the classrooms. The Education Minister, Dr. Yao Osei Educhum, was compelled to answer questions in Parliament on why the textbook
I know my colleague will come and quote me, but all that I can is being done so that get into trouble with my colleague. So, Mr. Speaker, all that I can say is that the final stage is what we have done now, quality assurance, and our textbooks are going to be available in the classroom.
In July 2022, the government printed and supplied textbooks to schools. My colleague, Papania Ashali, met the Deputy Education Minister, Reverend Intim Fojo, and asked when all schools will receive the textbooks.
And so we are monitoring and ensuring that the delivery, printing, delivery, distribution must continue as effective at the speed that we are seeing it now. And we are very optimistic that even before the 90-day period, every school and every child will have the required number of books to support their effective learning. It's an ongoing process. We'll collate all the data and then we will let you know.
That the ministry at this point in time do not know that students or schools that have received...
Don't go on that mischief angle, because that will not be...
No, it's not mischief. You mentioned that some of the students have received the textbooks.
It's a process that is ongoing. We are here at the press house, having seen the production, the packaging and the delivery. And we have given you information of about 60% that have already gone to regions that have also been in the process of being distributed. Some have definitely gone to schools. And we have told you that we will ascertain the particular schools that they've gone.
So we focus on the Kratchi and Chumuru districts of the Oti region. Many teachers found innovative ways of impacting knowledge because they had not received textbooks.
My name is James Asarudi, and this Motoka number 2 DA Primary, Basic 4. I'm the one in charge of this class. There have not been textbooks. In fact, I won't say adequate. There's none. Not even a single textbook to boast of. So at times what we do is you have to go around. When you get a passage, you have to run photocopy of it. You bring it for lesson. And then there are some other subjects that we the teachers, we use our personal money to get some 1-2 textbooks on our own that we are using. So that is how we teach over here.
The new curriculum, we don't have them.
You don't have them?
Yes, we went for a workshop, all right, but except this particular term that they brought some few textbooks, and the textbooks only class 1, class 2 and class 3. Few ones, English, only English. We normally write some simple sentences and simple readings on the board for them so that they will copy and they will go home and learn because of the books are not available.
As of December 2022, many schools had not received textbooks. Motoka DA Primary School had not received textbooks.
The issue is that we don't have textbooks. So some of us use our own money to buy it, like this RME. I bought it with my own money. Science with my own money. And the one that I can afford is what I bought. Or maybe you go to the other school and go and borrow books from the other school and come and teach them after that, send it back.
We lack books. Subjects that we don't have books. We lack maths books, we lack science books, we lack social what are people, we lack history. In fact, basically we lack all books.
I'm Bernice, a class 3 teacher, and this is our class. About the textbooks, we don't even have a single of them. That's the new curriculum textbooks. So I bought a golden textbook, that golden English, golden Sahara, it's drawn like according to the new curriculum. So that is what I am using small. I just bought single of them. So I use them alone. They don't have some to use. We are pleading with the government to provide us with the textbooks, the new curriculum textbooks, because we don't have any of them in the school.
Since 2019, the curriculum has been changed, but so far we haven't been delivered any textbook yet. And the ones that I get in the market, that's what I've bought so far. But I bought, that's for my copy, it's not for the students. The one I used to teach them. So, and you know, if you are teaching, there are some things, some pictures and some words the children themselves might see. But it's not, as it's not enough, there is no way they can see those things. And so that's the major challenge we have here.
The Jokope DA Primary School had also not received textbooks.
You just go online, Google about the subject, you do your own research and come in. You don't have textbooks, so you just go online and Google about the subject, then you come and teach just like that. we don't have textbooks.
At all?
At all. But like, personally, myself, when I was coming, I bought some myself from my place. Some teachers who I know they have, that one you buy it yourself.
Brian Kwanta had some textbooks for some classes.
The textbook we have, only few. And looking at the number of the children, each child will not get a textbook. At least 4 in 1. 4 children per 1 book. And those children cannot carry the book home.
In Desala DA Primary School also had not received textbooks. So how will these children be confident, creative, digitally literate and well-rounded citizens as stated by the president when they do not have learning aids? This is just one side of the story.
Schools under trees is a symptom of poor planning. Why did we not know that that community needs a school and proactively put a school there? And just go and approve a school that is under tree. When you were sending the teachers there, didn't we see there were no classrooms? So it's an indictment against us, and we are going to do a better job next time, not to look at the sentence, but to really uproot the challenge, the problem.
Children here study under very terrible conditions. The district chief executive of Krachi Nchimuru, Makwesi, acknowledges that his district has serious infrastructural challenges.
The infrastructure deficit is huge. We have a lot of deplorable schools. We have high number of schools under trees too. Then furniture deficit. At the last time when I checked, I requested for that data from the District Assembly. We have over 7,000 deficits. So we have over 7,000 children who don't have any furniture to sit on. So that is about half of the student population in the district.
These children endure a lot of challenges, including snakes evading their classrooms.
Class munti ya brepa esram pachan ya na ekun ya school kwala no
mo de na ekun
ya dudua na dia akun
na oba mo nchen
pachan na na class ya adi na obai na dudua dia abura akun nti ya sram pa mo mbuai.
But they still show up in school to study. Even without furniture, some carry kitchen stools on their heads and walk long distances, all in the quest of getting educated. The pupils are getting ready to write their end of third term examinations. After 10 minutes into the exams, Michael Kwabna Nayak rides his bicycle to school. He said he went to fetch water for the house, but because he was running late, he decided to come to school first. He goes round in search of a spare pencil because he misplaced his. After getting a pencil, he starts to write the exams.
A, air pollution, B, water pollution, C, money. So when you find it,
Michael has no furniture, so he kneels and begins to take the test. Many children in his classroom without furniture assume the same position. It's a very uncomfortable posture, but they endure, from lying on broken benches, sitting on stones, and on the bare floor. Three children cram on a table, making it difficult for them to do independent work. This is very common in many schools visited. Michael and his friends have a plea to the government.
Honesty student from my non-fat textbook and break any computer, any student for any Dexys.
This challenge is well known to the Vice President of the Republic.
Was it not just a little bit of smart politicking? You know, you noticed a problem had been announced and then you thought, let me just turn up and show that I care.
Perhaps let me answer it for him. You know why? You know why? If smart politicking can get kids to have tables, so be it.
The whole issue that you are looking at children without desks. When I saw the story, honestly, initially, when I heard the story, I could not believe it. I really could not believe it, because if you are looking to of this country, inshallah, as vice president and head of the economic management team, one needs to be very familiar with the ground. And I'm doing a lot of these trips to really be able to assess for myself what is the situation, what are the needs. And so when you go to an area and they tell you that kids are lying on the floor and studying, you ought to go and see it for yourself.
So why can't this be permanently solved?
2 years ago, government launched a program to eliminate all 5,400 schools under trees in collaboration with the Valco Trust Fund. Then we saw an appeal for funds going on the website, schoolsundertrees.com. Send no more contributions. So I asked myself, it is heartwarming to provide an opportunity for citizens to contribute towards building schools. If government is constricted with cash, that's fine. But I thought that there was no clear plan to raise funds, and that by starting from that point, it didn't show true commitment, because we had to see seed money being put into that investment. We saw government put in from 25 to 330 million Ghana cedis in constructing a cathedral, which is now an underground big mahu. Okay, so we were expecting to see government put the seed money into the 3.5 billion fund that was required to eliminate the 5,400 schools under trees. Today is 2 years. This month is 2 years. We are in the second year. You know how many schools that have been constructed? Less than 20.
Quick facts. There are 68 public schools in the Krachi Inchimuri district. 45% are in a horrible state. This roughly means 31 schools are not fit to be called schools. 7,000 children in the district have no furniture. Nationally, as of 2021, there were 5,400 schools in the trees. The government, supported by the Valco Trust Fund and government, have been raising funds to eliminate schools under trees. But in 2022, only 18 schools have been handed over. Government officials say inadequate funding is the problem. Are you willing to be part of the solution? Jojo Kobna, JoyNews.
Murtala is busy at his workshop trying to finish a shoe order for a customer. In this hard economy, every peso counts. These days, he receives few orders, so he works hard to satisfy all his loyal customers
If I don't, who will do it? Nobody. Until the economic will be stable. So if the economic is stable, that is ours here. Once in a while, like as we are here, somebody pays a visit, or he or she has been invited to a program. He doesn't have any nice, easy wear to wear. Just pass by, tell him, do you have this size? Oh, I don't have it. Or can you do it for me by close of the day? Then I have to squeeze and do it.
Murtala is no stranger to difficulties. The father of two suffered polio as an infant and lost the use of his legs. Navigating the current economic challenges as a person with physical disability struggles a notch higher. Murtala does not board trotros because the majority of public buses are not disability friendly. Also, trotro drivers are not patient, and so they deny him access. So he rides inexpensive chartered taxis.
The way I am right now, I can't take a trotro. Because the moment I drop it, I just signal to a trotro driver who tell me that the route is not good. Simply because he doesn't have a place to keep my wheelchair. So by so doing, he won't pick me. So I have to go in for another option of taking a taxi. And of late you see the condition that we are in. Take a taxi is hell.
How is your movement?
It's so severe that without a taxi I can't move.
So you have to always hire a taxi?
Yeah, I have to take a taxi or boat or something of that sort.
So and that means how much do you spend on transportation a week?
You know, let's take for instance from transporting from in and out 80 cedi for a weekend.
He ventured into leather works at the Accra Rehabilitation Center in the 90s because his father refused to pay for his accountancy program. His excellent craftsmanship got him a job in the Youth for Employment program. He was posted to the Social Welfare Department and later to the Ghana Society for the Socially Disadvantaged.
I do slippers, sandals, belts, repairs, everything I do.
Oh, wow.
If your bag is spoiled, I can mend it to you.
Oh, okay.
All these, some of the things that I do, I've not been taught, to be honest with you. Because I personally, the way I use industrial sewing machine with my foot, you see, you could see that if I put my leg on the step, I can maneuver it. Wow. Through my instructor who also teaches me. But I just make sure that one of my legs is very strong a little.
But Murtala's shoe business has slumped because of the current economic challenges. Prices of leather materials have shot through the roof. And with customers refusing to pay more for shoes, Murtala only gets marginal profits.
So at first we sold it at 50 cedis, but now you can't sell it 50 cedis now because we have to sell it 80 because of the economy that has risen up. So at first we were buying one sheet of bona, which is down of this. One sheet of it, we used to buy it around 70 cedis. So now it's getting to 200. One sheet of this.
200 cedis?
Yeah, 200
From 70 to 200 cedis?
Yeah.
Why?
Because they are imported from outside. You know, I pump a lot, but getting it is very difficult because the marketing is very slow. You produce the work. Oh, I want this. Okay, you just buy it. Maybe nobody will come in the following 2 days before somebody will also come. The material that we used to buy with the lower price has increased
astronomically.
Seriously. So if you went and buy this material today But at the end of today, the price will increase. So imagine what you did already and what you're about to do. How are you going to sell it? Because if you are not okay, can you go and buy slippers? Because if you don't have enough, and me personally, if nobody comes to me to come and purchase what I produce, how am I going to earn a living?
His wife, Joyce, also a person with physical disability, prepares banku and pepper and fish for dinner after a long day out. She supports Murtala in beadcraft to supplement his income. But in these harsh times, the business is not fetching much. She tells me the budget for running the home expenses has gone up.
First, no, when we were gas, I am using the campaign. They say no, as a no more I did. A mammy to me to gas and be na ya to be dinner. I am used to be in Kakaka. It is managing Kakaka. Then who said first, no me to mole. Five, where's the same Mola? Me got 7 city. Me to match mole 2 city, mole papa 5 city. It is 7 city. And I'm used to Ebia. Me say, who come market here? They say, I'm someone 5 city. This is my top 50. And 10 city. Someone almost 50 city. It is my top me call 2 city. It was 2 city. Gender 2 city.
She has not given up. She's now learning the snail breeding trade to help shore up the house income and pay for the increasing expenses.
Almost papa no no fresh almost here almost there say la yan we no me no na me friend e can for see wa what you here awa you anwa there me no mo flat
there snail enwa enwa okay na no o siansa na obe man obe chichi omo a manage aton ana
person me yen sa business me bit na me kosi aye
ma me o pesca o
pesca se na brabo ye be ha anya aha be
na mo say no market ne ye
the ochire no see say we are Nitono obetimi aboa.
Murtala's family is sticking together, hopeful the economy will turn around and bring back smiles to their faces.
Thank you so much for staying here on the AM show. Just gone by was Living Standard series focusing on how persons with disability make ends meet. Well, it's now time to let you in on what's happening. Remember last year, Latina Travels took us on a tour to Israel. Well, they're doing it again this year. This time, guess with who? Perez Music. Hello. Hi. How are you? I'm good. Good to see you. I'm doing great. It's wonderful to see you. I love his music. Well, for some of you, you know, you listen to songs and you don't know the person behind it. So I'm sure if I do a line or two...
you should. Nunuga.
Oh, Ninka say few.
Nunuga.
Ingo few.
Really?
Yeah.
But you have a gun name?
Do I? No, I don't.
Okay.
I call me Bernice.
Bernice.
Amanyanima few. She Lala. The guy is Emin.
You've spoken down.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, I can speak it, but to sing it is quite difficult.
I understand.
Yeah.
It should have been easier singing it though.
I know. That's Perez Music for you. And for those of you who love grooving to that song, how about joining him on that trip to Israel? Have you been to Israel yourself?
No, myself I haven't.
Okay.
So for me, it's an exciting trip. For me, it's going to be an exciting trip for me too as well. And I'm actually looking forward to it. I mean, the fact that the things that we've read, the things that we've heard in churches, I mean, we've read some of these things in my book of Bible stories and all that. We've only seen pictures of some of these places. So for me, going there and having the first-hand experience, it will be amazing. I just want to see the tomb in which Jesus Christ was laid, and probably get baptized in the Jordan River just as he was by John the Baptist. So, I mean, it's very exciting for me.
So this is happening from the 26th of February to the 6th of March. You have a lot of time to prepare for it. So, I mean, just start saving. It's not too much. For single persons, you're paying $3,450. And if you're like me, who likes to cut down a lot, of course, find a friend there. Pay $2,900 and go to Israel with Litina Travels.
$2,900 each.
Each. Oh, is it each? Yes. No. Is it?
Yeah, that's
per person. Okay, but still, it's reduced. So just find a friend and come as a team. That's allowed, right? Bettina, that's allowed, is it? Yeah, okay, sure. So, yeah, so beyond seeing these Bible stories come to life, what do you think the impact will be like? We've heard the stories of other people who visited Israel, but for you, what is your expectation beyond just seeing the
So for me, it goes beyond the physical. I think it's going to be a spiritual awakening for myself, and I believe it's going to be the same for everyone who comes. I keep saying that, like, I mean, getting to walk on the streets that our Lord Jesus Christ walked on, getting to experience the reality of, I think it's gonna trigger something in your mind, trigger something in your thoughts. And anytime you hear somebody talking about the Word of God or preaching the Word of God, I think it will ring differently in your mind. And as a minister, and for other ministers too as well, I think it will give you more. It will give you some level of confidence when you're talking about the Word of God, when you're preaching, when you're teaching it. I mean, you can cite realistic examples. And for me, like Mama V was saying, I'm actually hoping to be inspired to write a song. So maybe as a minister or whoever you are, you might get an inspiration to write a sermon that might bless people.
Yeah, that's lovely. That's lovely. Are we going to see a ministration? Is there a plan for something?
So we are working on something.
Okay, you should work on something, because I can imagine what the experience will be like worshiping with you in Israel. Yes. That will be great. Well, join us on a trip. It's a 7-day trip from the 26th of February to the 6th of March.
It's actually 8 days, because it's going to be a full day stop in Dubai before we come. So
that's a good addition. So for those of you who want to visit Dubai, this is like all in one package here. So you can just stop by in Dubai and then get to Israel from there and spend time with Perez Music and other Christians, people of like mind, even as they hope to see the reality of what we read and bring all those scriptures to life in our minds and in our memories. So there's a number to call if you want to be a participant. Call 0244-260-789, 0244-260-789. When you call, you hear a sweet voice at the end. Her name is Bettina, and you can ask all the questions and she'll give you all the guidance that you need. Once again, thank you so much,
Perez
Music.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
The next time I host you, I will sing the song,
and I'll make sure
from A to Z.
I bring something. When you're able to sing it properly, I'll dash it to you.
It's a promise. I'll learn it. All right. On that note, we end this edition of the AM Show. Thank you so much for your company. I'm Bernice Lansah, and I've been doing this with Benjamin Akakpo. God willing, tomorrow we are back again with an exciting edition of the AM Show, focusing on what matters to you. But do stay with us, your most credible news source. Up next is News Desk. Take care.